The November 5th, 2014 meeting of the Milton School Committee will come to order. As is our tradition, please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag and our country. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would, please join me for a moment of silence. On October 20th, we lost Chris Lynch, a member of the Lynch family that does so much for our town. Mike Lynch is here behind the camera, as he always is, and if you would, please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Changes to the agenda. We will not be approving any minutes this evening. We will be deferring the fiscal year 16 fee schedule discussion and vote to Monday evening. Our next meeting, by the way, is Monday evening the 10th, not Wednesday the 12th. We will be deferring discussion on the fiscal year 16 advancement budget update to that November 10th meeting as well. And those are the changes. Any other changes or additions? Okay, with that, do we have anyone for citizen speak? Thank you. Michelle Connolly.
Evening.
This is my first citizen speak, so I will have to be maybe redirected to do something correctly here. My name is Michelle Connolly, and I am the newly elected chairperson of the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Our elections were held in September, and I'm really impressed with the level of experience and commitment our 10-member board brings to the table. They are parents of children with a wide range of special needs in all grade levels of Milton Public Schools, which is a great thing for us. There'll be great liaisons to the board and to the district. The CPAC board has already contributed much time and energy in identifying goals and objectives, forming committees, and discussing district initiatives. One of the CPAC priorities is to ensure compliance with Massachusetts regulations, and we hope to have that resolved by year end. We hosted our first parent meeting and workshop last night, and we were impressed with the turnout. We had about 25 parents there. They were able to constructively voice their concerns to help us form our agenda and priorities for the year. For example, parents were concerned about issues, recurring issues like extended school year and extended day, the social skills curriculum and how social and emotional skills are being addressed in the school district, assisted technology, and many issues came up related to what is being discussed here, the achievement gap and the MCAS. We know that the special needs is a large bucket of that. We believe it would be in the district's interest for the school committee to establish a subcommittee on special education. We are enjoying meeting monthly with Karen Clasby, the special education director, but we also believe that this would be beneficial. We believe that this subcommittee will be an excellent vehicle for the CPAC to understand school decision-making while helping the school committee understand the special education process and parent experiences to inform them in their deliberations. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of this committee, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
We'll move to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chairman Walker. First, I'd like to invite to the table, through our Advancement 2.0, our recently new position to the Milton Public School, our parent liaison. Would you join us? Marty O'Keefe McKenna. Welcome, Marty. If I might, before we begin, Marty was involved in a parent-to-parent program in Quincy. She was the program director, responsible for overseeing the coordination, preschoolers, till young adults, a parent home program in the Quincy, interim director, another home, parent-child home program in the Quincy area. She was involved in the Department of Social Services. Marty has a degree in social work. Marty has been involved in all aspects of the Milton Public Schools. She has 4 children who have graduated from the Milton Public Schools. We had a very competitive process. I want to recognize Assistant Superintendent Janet Sheehan and our leadership team, who we went through several rounds of interviews, and there was a consensus among all involved, teachers, administrators, that Marty brought a tremendous amount of experience, energy, and ideas to the table. Marty will share with you now. I've gone to meetings and said, I think our new parent liaison should be at this meeting, and people will say, she was at our meeting yesterday, or she was at our meeting the other night. So you've hit the ground running morning, noon, and night, and you have short and long-term plans that perhaps you'll be introduced, but then we'll give the school committee meeting updates on just the strides that you're making. So on behalf of the Milton Public Schools, welcome, and I thought the school committee might like to hear from you, and you address the school committee.
Thank you. I'm actually very excited to be a part of this new initiative. So far, it's been a very smooth transition to my new role in the Milton Public Schools, and I thought what I'd do is share basically what at the Family Outreach Office we have been doing so far, and it's been a month, so I think it was a month yesterday. So I've been, first of all, trying to introduce myself to everybody and anybody. I met with the principals and just wanted to pick their brains and see what their vision of where they thought I could best be used. So I started at that point, and then I branched out. I met with adjustment counselors, diversity committees. I went just to kind of introduce myself and see what they were about. School site councils. I'm going to faculty staff meetings because people know me in a different role. So I just want to introduce myself with my new hat on and let them know that I'm there for them. Also reaching out to people in the community that I think will be useful in my role. The Milton Early Childhood Alliance and Diane Ferrari. Also contacting the food pantry just because I want to use them as a resource and I want to be able to know about them in order to do that. So, and also trying to reach out to other communities that have family and community liaisons. I think that would certainly help to see, kind of pick their brains. So that's been my introduction role. The other thing I've been trying to do is go to lots of events. So any school that's having an event, I show up there, say, hey, here I am. Reintroduce myself to families and kids, because the elementary kids all know me as the woman who works in the library, so now it's a new role. I walked down the hall today and some little kid comes and said, I thought you retired. I was like, no, new role. So I've been trying to get out to all the school events that I can. That's been great. Another big thing that I seem to have spent a lot of time on is the kindergarten readiness pilot program that you all were involved in, and basically reaching out to families who we saw that had 4-year-olds that we thought could really benefit from that program, and then some who found out via the advertising, and taking them through the registration process, making sure they know you have to have X, Y, and Z in order to register. You know, it's a typical registration, but it's new for them, lots of them. So making sure they have all those documents that they need. And then went the first, so 2 weeks ago it started, so Monday and Wednesday, I went in the morning just because I was the familiar face that they knew for the Milton Public Schools. So I wanted to welcome them to the preschool. So it's been great. That's been a great thing. Another thing I've been doing is trying to contact families that are new to Milton Public Schools this year. Primarily not kindergartners, because they're all new. But I've started with 1st to 5th grade and just kind of saying, how's it going? Anything we can help you with? It's tough being the new kid on the block. So I want to make sure that they know that Milton Public Schools cares how their adjustment is. And then in addition, I've worked with principals, nurses, adjustment counselors, and teachers, maybe reaching out to some families who need some assistance beyond the scope of what the teacher can give them in the classroom. If I can either direct them to a resource or just kind of help them feel comfortable in the school process, reminding people of parent-teacher conferences and how important that is and things like that. So I think that's pretty much what has been happening in our office. I should say my. Well, I share it with Patty, but what I've been doing as the family outreach liaison. So.
Ms. Sheridan?
Well, welcome, Marty.
Thank
I've
you.
known Marty for
Long time.
many years. Our children were in school, preschool, daycare together years ago. And as before you started to speak, I just took down some notes, some thoughts about my experience and my knowledge of Marty as a human being, and everything you just described fit perfectly with what I had thought about. I know that you are a true advocate for students and families, and a wealth of knowledge, as Ms. Gormley outlined in her introduction of you. But you're also very energetic by that list of things that you've accomplished already in the first month. And I know you to be a go-to person if someone needs something to get something done, that you're a great person to go to. But above all of that, I think it's your compassion and your sense of caring for people that makes you just a perfect fit for this. So welcome to the Milton Public Schools in this new role. So.
Ms. Bagley-Jones?
No, I had something I had to say about this. I'm so glad that you're here and that the position is filled. It's going to be a wonderful asset to us. I had a couple of questions. The resources, the introductions that you're doing to the new families, 1 through 5, could there maybe be a letter that's generated 1 through 12 to all new families, sort of explaining who you are, a welcoming note?
Right.
This is how I can help you with this, because I'm thinking about Pierce in high school, and the students can help me with this, but it's a really tough time for kids coming into middle school and high school new to Milton, and it might be nice to be able to say, adjustment counselors,
Right.
school nurses, like here's some people in your child's building, or I don't know if the students have anything to add to that, but just a way to help kids who aren't necessarily going to go home and tell their parents, I'm in 9th grade, I don't know what to do.
Right, yeah.
So that was one idea, and then, the PAC, I don't know if you're going to be reaching out to the Parents Advisory Council.
Right, well, actually, I just met Michelle,
Awesome.
so.
And then the Health and Wellness Committee, we are about to go online with our resource pages that we've been working on for a while. We keep thinking we're done, and then we add more into it.
Right.
So that might, if we could get that up and running, that might be something you could also tell parents about.
Sure, yeah.
In your letters, or as you talk to parents, that would be great, but we just have to get it online.
Right.
Almost
And
there.
and we're not inclusive to just 1st through 5th.
Right.
It was just basically, all right, where can we start immediately? But
That's
we
right.
actually have a couple new to the high school who are on my radar to just check in
Right.
at home and say, how's it going? And, do you feel like you need a buddy to kind of take you through these steps? And here's what's coming up. So, yeah, I think
Great.
that's really important, K through 12.
We had talked, Marty and I had spoken about developing a group of partner parents, mentors, and giving the parents training and teaming them up with the new parents so they have someone that checks in on them, someone that they can call, and be able to ask how to access help and assistance, or easy questions, how to sign up for that parent-teacher
Right.
conference next
Right,
month.
someone said, how do I get Edline? Okay, here's
Right.
your account number, and this is what you do. So, I mean, some of them can be very, easily direct them somewhere, but, yeah, I think it's hard, because if you've been in schools for a little while, you forget how confusing it can be just to how do I drop off? This seems very confusing. I'm not allowed to turn there, and, does my kid bring cash for lunch, or is there a system? So, I mean, any of those things that either I can point them in the direction, or we can put them with a buddy who, can just kind of help them.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy?
Just going off of what Ms. Bagley-Jones said, just when it comes to high school, elementary school is a great way to start off and start talking to parents and stuff. If I was to, I came to Milton Public Schools in 4th grade. So as a 4th grader, at younger child, I feel in a lot of ways it's a little bit easy to work in, because friendships aren't as tied as much, where in middle school and high school, the friendships are tied. So one thing that I would suggest just working in with new middle schoolers and high schoolers, especially at the high school, we have so many programs such as student leaders, student government, stuff like that, maybe tapping into those. There's there's 2 new kids in the school, maybe talk to some student leaders, to student government, make sure not sitting alone at lunch, stuff like that, just simple stuff like that.
Sure.
And we're told, I'm in both of those, and we're told if you see somebody at lunch, you go up and talk to them, try and include them as much as possible. So maybe if we can tie those in, just to make sure kind of everybody's getting
So it would be
adjusted
help
well.
to formally set that up, all right,
Exactly.
we have a new friend coming, can you take them to lunch for a couple days just so they get acclimated? That's-
Exactly, and just kind of set something up with it. I think that would help a lot.
Can I just add to that? It's sort of what you're saying, and what I was trying to say was, it's almost like a welcome wagon
Right.
type approach to everybody that's new.
Absolutely.
Here's this, all of those ideas that you just had. I mean, a parent, I wouldn't know if I came in high school if one of my kids came in high school that they were student leaders. How would I know that?
Right.
So it's like a welcome wagon.
Absolutely.
Letter
It's-
that goes
it's a-
out to
It's a
all
great
new
system,
families.
welcome, but we want you to feel welcome. We
Exactly.
don't want you to feel like a guest,
Right.
at least beyond first couple days.
Great.
Mr. Zulus?
Marty, welcome. What's been the response of the families that you've been in touch with thus far? If you can characterize it one way or the other.
Some, it's speechless, wow, you're calling to see how I'm doing, this is great. Others have very specifics, I'm so glad you called, I'm really looking for this. So it's been, I think, surprise, but a nice surprise.
It's been very positive.
Yeah,
You
so far it
haven't
has
had any
been-
negative feedback? or anything?
I have not had any, no one has hung up on me. So, but I try and be very, we're here to help.
Yep.
So, and again, welcome, to the Milton Public Schools. It's a great place to be.
Nice.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you. Next, we'd like to invite to the table the PS Middle School Site Council. Gotta get chairs for them. Chairs.
She lives here.
Very astute.
Give the woman a night off.
Good evening, Dr. Spalding. I'll let you make the introductions.
Oh, dear.
Clicker, one.
Is it not there? I can go get one. Yeah, I'll get one.
Well, Glenn knows where they are.
You know what? I just recognize one as Milton High teacher. Never mind.
Maybe, just for the viewing audience, do you want to move up here closer to Dr. Spalding? Mr. Stute? Mr. Moonen? along with Mr. Check. So welcome. Welcome.
Should we wait for him to come back, or?
I'll do it until they come. Okay.
Do what? Run the mic?
So we are the Pierce Middle School Site Council, and we are here this evening to share with the viewing public as well as school committee what the Pierce Middle School Site Council has been up to, as well as what the Pierce Middle School has been up to and what we hope to be up to in the future. So we should probably begin with introductions, so maybe I'll just pass the microphone right down the line. I am Dr. Spalding, proud principal of the Pierce Middle School.
Hi, I'm Jim Moonen. I'm a 7th grade math teacher at Pierce Middle School.
I'm Mark Check, parent of an 8th grader at Pierce Middle School.
My name is Jeff Stote. I'm a 6th grade science teacher at Pierce Middle School and the father of a 6th grader at Pierce Middle School.
Gillian Najarian. I'm the parent of an 8th grader at the Pierce and 11th grader at the high school, and I'm sad to say I guess this is my last year because I'll be graduating out of the Pierce, so.
She can't go. I'm Amy Flanagan, and I'm the mother of a 7th grader at Pierce and a 9th grader at Milton High.
Sarah Palia. I am a math teacher, 8th grade math teacher at Pierce.
Hello, my name is Lisa Viola, and I'm a parent of a 7th grader.
So this is a shared presentation, so we will be passing the microphone back and forth, and I apologize for that distraction. So what we want to do this evening is begin with the end in mind, which is work that we began last year applying a backwards design approach to school improvement. And so we'll begin by sharing with you our mission statement, what we hope for students as they make their way through the Pierce Middle School. We wanted to then share with you the process that we went through, sort of the growth process that we went through as a site council in terms of the work that we do. Remind you of some of the data that's been presented in the last month to school committee in terms of some of the achievement data as well as growth data. And then speak to 3 goals that we've identified for our work and to focus our efforts at the Pierce Middle School.
So our mission statement was something that was created, the entire school was actually involved. It was first put together via a small group and then shared out and then combed over again by a group, a book group, reading about learning by design, and shared out with the entire staff one more time. So I almost feel as if I'm saying sort of like the Pledge of Allegiance here for Pierce. There's this saying in the lower right-hand corner here about if the ladder is not leaning against the right wall. I think through our process we definitely have the ladder on the right wall. So here is Pierce's mission statement. At Pierce Middle School, we are dedicated to nurturing our students to become positive contributors to society, to be people who think independently and creatively, who are resilient and know how to solve problems, who appreciate diversity and are open, willing, and ready to collaborate with those around them. We are committed to fostering in these very important students a genuine sense of curiosity, a joy of learning, and strength of character that will guide them to make positive and healthy decisions for themselves and others, now and throughout their lives.
Thank you. Now Gillian will speak to our school improvement process.
So because of our commitment to being data-driven and strategic in goal setting, we wanted to improve our ability to craft measurable goals for the school improvement plan. And as has been discussed, the Pierce has been applying a schooling by design process, which basically means starting at the end. and given what you want to achieve, backing up to how you want to get there. And this process has been led by a team of faculty and staff, and the site council has been a sounding board for that work. So we began by assessing our 2013-2014 goals with the schooling by design criteria in mind, and determined that our existing goals were problematic in a variety of ways. So as a group, we started practicing articulating new SMART goals. And as we got into that process, we realized that the school improvement plan template as is was not so conducive for capturing the structured thinking that we were going through. So we started fantasizing about, well, what would a new template look like? So before the end of the school year, we began brainstorming features of a template that would allow for guided thinking, that obviously would capture goals, but also action steps and measurable outcomes. And over the summer, we created a revised template to reflect those features, and I really want to give thanks to the school committee for giving us the space to experiment a little bit and to try something different. That support was really appreciated, and we hope that we're demonstrating that if you can pilot some new things, that we can sort of iterate on the model and maybe come up with something a little bit stronger. So then we spent the early part of the fall reworking some of the goals into the new format, and we think that it has been something so much more streamlined and so much more simple, and you can actually follow from beginning to end and have a causal pathway that reflects not only the thinking of the school, but then the steps that we'll take to meet the goals.
So to walk through the revised school improvement plan template here and just point out some of the differences, what we're really starting with is that learning goal. What is the goal we're trying to get at? And then looking at the district goals alignment. So what are the district goals? What's the goal we're trying to reach? And how are these things aligning in between? So in this particular example, we're looking at high academic achievement and excellent in the classroom. But more so looked at through the lens of what our particular goals are in the improvement plan. Moving down on the template here, we have the advancement initiatives alignment. So in this particular case, closing proficiency gaps is one of the pieces that we're looking really closely at. And then a summary of what this particular goal is that we have in the school improvement plan. What I think is really important about this particular template, though, is what we see at the bottom of this is really calling out what are the strategies that we're going to employ to get at this goal. Who are the people responsible for doing this? So really trying to call out if they're teachers, administrators, parents, etc., who's involved in this process, a specific timeline around the process. So really trying to set milestones and measurables as we move through achieving the goal. The resources, again, this can be personnel, but also financial resources, it can be equipment, etc. And what are the performance indicator measures? So how do we know we're meeting this goal as we're moving along this timeline? And not just an end performance indicator measure, but other performance indicator measures along the gradient of this.
So before we shift to what goals we chose, we want to lay a little bit of the groundwork because we were committed to data-driven decision-making and data-driven goal setting. And so we're going to just review some of the data points. A more detailed handling of these can be found in the October 1st and October 15th presentations, but we just wanted to state a few of those this evening.
So at Pierce Middle School, we proudly expect high achievement of all learners, and we set goals, and it's nice sometimes to see some of the programs that are implemented actually have some data-driven results. And as a teacher, I can say, we're very thankful for our curriculum meetings, our common planning time, the new implementation of common assessments, new programs that have been implemented, such as Pierce Academy, the iSTEM program, and tweaking old programs such as math investigations, and seeing high achievement throughout all students and improvement in high needs areas. So this slide, I think really the first 5 bullet points kind of show achievement throughout Pierce Middle School, where 88% of students were proficient in or advanced in ELA, 48% of sixth grade students scored advanced in math. ELA seventh grade performed better than 88% of seventh graders in Massachusetts, et cetera. And the final 4 bullet points kind of show high improvement in areas of high need, which is very important. And I think that Pierce Middle School has done a good job of implementing new programs focused on, showing improvement in those areas, and it's good to see the results. For example, our annual PPI for high needs students is up 25 points. We earned extra credit points for shifting African American students into advanced categories in math and science and technology and engineering. We increased the number of students with disabilities and proficient in science and technology, and we increased the percentage of students in high needs category who scored proficient or advanced in ELA by 11%. So it's nice to see, the improvement in all of the testing, such as, math, ELA, and science and technology, and see improvement in the high needs areas and across the board.
So we also wanted to take a look at our programming and our interventions, and we, again, wanted to be data-driven in our thinking about whether to continue those interventions, modify them in any way, stop them if they weren't working. And again, this more detailed handling of this can be found in the October 15th presentation. But we found that targeted reading intervention works. And we found that because our students who received the targeted reading intervention had significantly higher student growth percentiles. We also found that Pierce Academy worked, at least for 7th and 8th grade. And we found, again, in that case, that the student, when we looked at the student growth percentiles for students who were in the program compared to the general population, we did find higher student growth percentiles, in some cases significantly higher student growth percentiles. And we also compared that data to different groups of students, to the general population, to the low-income subgroup, so that we can have some understanding about the degree of growth. We found that math investigations worked. Again, looking at what are the median student growth percentiles look like for students who received math investigations compared to students who were not receiving it. And then finally, this is an example of what Mr. Moonen was speaking to, the idea of what goes on in those curriculum meetings and that precious common planning time, and how that translates to instruction and how that translates to results. Because ultimately, we want changes in practice that lead to higher academic achievement and higher growth. And this is one of those examples. So the 7th grade teachers had been looking at data and reflecting on data, and identified writing, and in particular coming up with some targeted strategies, intentional teaching around writing and supporting writers. And they had those conversations in their during their common planning time, during those curriculum meetings, and then they implemented those strategies, and they looked at student work collaboratively again during that common planning time, during those curriculum meetings, and there were almost instant results, because that was work that they embarked on just last year. And it showed in terms of the achievement, both for the aggregate as well as specifically in the African American subgroup. So rooted in the data, we identified some focus areas, and these will sound a little familiar because they've been our focus areas more than just this year. Thinking in terms of the long-term planning, and that's the full implementation of the new science curriculum with the addition of new common assessments, increasing and or modifying our targeted support for students, especially in the high needs subgroup, and again, that's that reflection on data, determining what worked, what didn't, what might need to be changed, enhancing our structure for ongoing assessment, because these decisions we're making about interventions and such, we're relying heavily on data, and so are getting better even at using the data and thinking about the data. Increasing achievement in all areas with, again, special attention, and again, data-driven with the students with disabilities subgroup, and then moving students into advanced categories in ELA, math, and science, technology, engineering. So we as a site council came up with 3 goals. The first, and again, we took what used to be our 37 goals and streamlined them into 3 targeted, measurable goals. And we do still have some refinement to do, but we're getting there. And so the first goal was to improve science, and we identified strategies, ways in which we would do that, which again include continuing with the implementation of the science curriculum materials with fidelity, so sticking to the curriculum and having conversations about student learning around it, professional development for teachers in the area of the science curriculum implementation and effective practice, developing common assessments, and then this fourth one, this idea of increasing the presence for science and STEM at the Pierce Middle School. And what we mean by that is getting word out that we are doing a lot of wonderful things in the area of science and STEM. And part of that work has included defining what we mean by STEM. And so we see science as a discipline, and we're continuing that work in terms of the curriculum materials. And we see STEM as a very specific way of engaging students in real-life experiences that integrate science, technology, engineering, and math. And so we have piloted some courses that we've presented about before, the iSTEM courses. And so we've piloted those, and so we've had conversations about, and I won't fully describe this because I know there's another presentation on science and STEM this evening, and you'll hear a little bit more about what's happening at the Pierce Middle School. But we're also having conversations and thinking about what the next steps are for STEM at the middle school. And one of those action steps that we're doing, working towards that, is Christy Chiapetta and I will be going to the Kristen McAuliffe Center tomorrow evening to meet with the director there, to work with her to submit a grant to the Department of Education to pilot some STEM experiences for students that are rooted in planetary sciences, but give them that real-world application of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And to speak a little bit about the iSTEM experience, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Amy Flanagan.
Hello. Just to briefly talk about the iSTEM experience, our family has been lucky enough that my older son was in the first iSTEM class 2 years ago when there was 1 class, and now 2 years later we have 3 classes across 7th and 8th grade. And as Jeff was reading the mission statement, the sparking the genuine sense of curiosity really stuck to me about what these iSTEM classes are doing. They're ungraded, unleveled classes that are just setting kids' imaginations on fire, and it's really making science, just bringing science into part of the popular culture dialogue that's happening in the schools. And I think one outcome you can really see growing from them is the science fairs. Our first science fair 2 years ago was great. Last year it was through the roof. I mean, not only was it a great event for science in the school, and the range of experiments we saw was fantastic, but family involvement. I mean, so many families up at the school, and so many of the kids were doing it through their iSTEM class. This year, my 7th grader has the privilege of being in an iSTEM class with Mr. Lagueros, and just to give you an example of what happens, I mean, 7th grade boys don't talk to their mothers at all, but I hear about this class all the time. And one of the things that was really getting the kids talking is they worked on a project where they used some kind of styrofoam blocks to build bridges that would span crevasses that happen in Mount Everest. So not only were they learning about Mount Everest, they were learning about the engineering of building bridges, and it was just really setting their imaginations on fire, because these kids were really on Mount Everest and talking with their peers. And then another project they just did is took a field trip to the Cape Cod Canal. And what they're doing as a follow-up is writing a teacher's guide to teaching about the Cape Cod Canal. And my son came home and he's like, you would not believe how hard it is to find information to teach kids about what you saw. So there's just so many things happening in the iSTEM program, and we're really, as parents, thankful that we have this opportunity.
So again, the iSTEM that began as one class expanded to 3 classes, and so now our conversations are around how can we give every student at the Pierce Middle School a STEM experience before they leave us. And just one more example of creating a presence for science and STEM at the Pierce Middle School. We want even those who just drive by to know that we do a lot of science and have a lot to do with STEM. Mr. Stote is going to give a quick update on the Pierce Middle School outdoor classroom. And before I hand him the microphone, I will publicly thank Beth Neville for her support in that area, but I will hand the microphone to Mr. Stote.
Yeah, the Pierce Outdoor Classroom, you can drive on Central Avenue and look down at about 5 to 6 garden boxes right now. It's been going on for a while, but we're really excited now. Last February, we had a Whole Foods conducted a fundraiser for us. It gave us $6,000, and add that to other fundraising efforts we'd had over the years, and we can really talk business now, which we have this summer with Beth Neville leading the way. We were out back making plans to really develop the outdoor classroom and make it a place that ties to the curriculum, has vegetation that will attract wildlife. And we're very excited about that because Beth is very knowledgeable about gardening and very passionate about it. And so I'm really grateful for her help in this area. We were hoping to break ground this fall, definitely this spring. You'll see changes as you drive along Central Avenue. So stay tuned.
Karen, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Before we go on to the next one. So on the STEM, iSTEM, when it first started, I know it was by invite. So what is it now?
So we have a 7th grade iSTEM sort of explorations in science, and then we have a computer science 8th grade iSTEM and mathematics 8th grade iSTEM. For all 3, students have to fill out an application where they write a statement for why they want to be in the class. And then for the 7th grade iSTEM, we also use MCAS scores and we use the math ones, so the most recent ones, the 6th grade math MCAS scores, if we need for an additional criteria. But they do have to write a statement, and they are beautiful statements that they write, and sometimes quite funny, about why they want to be in the iSTEM class. And so our hope in terms of the work ahead is to create a STEM opportunity for all students at the Pierce. Still maintain these specialized experiences, and we're doing a lot of work investigating different options like Project Lead the Way and other
Because I guess my question is also related to how does that impact our subgroups? If a kid doesn't write very well or doesn't like to write or can't write, so then, but they're hands-on, they don't get into STEM? Kind of.
We have a lot of guardian angels that look out for students, exactly as you just described. Our guidance counselors, our science teachers who see that spark in them when they're in the classroom and know that that's part of it and kind of take them under their wing and help them write that essay or statement. Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Zulis?
I don't want to get you off track, but Mr. Stout, did you say that the outdoor classroom attracts wildlife? And I was just, does the wildlife eat the plants, or?
Oh, no, I was talking birds.
Oh, birds. All right, okay. I thought there were deer coming in.
Hopefully not.
Sorry, I was
No,
confused.
So our second goal is focused on the idea of pushing students into advanced categories as well as closing the achievement gap. And I'm just going to pull all of these up here. And so, as I spoke to earlier, in our efforts to really be targeted and intentional in our work. We've spent a lot of time finding new ways, finding more effective ways to really analyze the effectiveness of our targeted interventions and use that understanding to either not do them anymore if they're not working, or enhance them if they need enhancement, or continue them if they're working as is. And so, for example, the Pierce Academy, we have very promising results with the Pierce Academy, with the exception of the 6th grade, and we think that has to do with sort of the way it was structured. And so the work this year is to further develop the goal setting, the mentoring components of the Pierce Academy, which we had in place to some extent last year, but did not fully develop. We are also identifying and implementing strategies and programming to really support the range of learners, and especially using and taking advantage of professional development as well as research, so that we're using strategies and trying strategies that really have a strong research base. And so we've had several pairs of teachers who have attended professional development in co-teaching to really support the students with disabilities subgroup. We have a team, it's actually a K-12 team, which is exciting, attending an equity in the mathematics classroom professional development opportunity at the beginning of December at EDC. In addition, we are, and the strategy 2.4 could have been on this page or the next page or both, but we're also formalizing our processes in the way that we really talk about, brainstorm, and identify ways in which to support students. We are we have been in conversations and are formalizing those conversations about identifying and purchasing math curriculum materials. So we've been talking about that. Right now, we are, if you're a parent of a student in Pierce Middle School, you know this already, but we're using a variety of materials and waiting for publishers to catch up with well-aligned Common Core materials. And so we've been doing work in that area. And then finally increasing the technology and the capacity for teachers to implement technology at the Pierce Middle School. And as I speak right now, some of our interactive whiteboards are being installed at the Pierce Middle School, which we're very excited about. And the Milton Foundation for Education as well continues to support us in the area of technology. And so our pilots that we began last year, for example, using blended learning or blended classroom, those are being expanded to other classroom subject areas as well as grade levels. And Mrs. Puglia is just going to speak a little bit, there she is just going to give you an update on what's been going on with the assessments in mathematics.
Hi. So this year we are piloting the district-determined measures, which I feel, as a math department, got a head start on, thanks to Dr. Lagueros and his leadership and his focus. So we did some work over the summer separately. So I know 8th grade did some work, 7th grade did some, and 6th grade did some to come up with a good task or tasks for them to do, some rich performance tasks to really see, not just multiple choice, they can, pick 25% they get the right answer, but to actually see what their thought process is through a problem if they're really understanding the content behind it. So we spent a lot of time this summer sort of looking at that and refining that and picking the perfect ones out. We implemented the pre-test the first couple days of school, and the post-test will be, I think, early to mid-spring, March, I think. I don't know if you know. I think around March. And then over the summer, we also looked at a rubric and others that had been taken that were already graded to see how they're graded. And then we came up with our own rubric as to how to label them low growth, moderate growth, and high growth. So, and we also, you were speaking of curriculum, we're using, and I know the high school was using some version of a Utah versus math program, so we were looking online and we found Utah math for middle school for both 7th and 8th grade, and so far I know in the 8th grade we are like, every day I'm like, oh my god, so great, did you do this problem yet? And it's really perfect way to teach the kids that we haven't been able to really find in any other source, I guess, that we've been searching for the past couple of years. So it's been a good year so far.
So we are certainly about reading and writing and math and science, and all of those important subject areas at the Pierce Middle School. But we are also committed to supporting the whole child and recognizing that, especially at the middle school level, there are all kinds of developmental things going on, identity development, and all of those things that happen through the middle school years. And so we remain committed to also supporting all of those other parts of the child and not just the academic areas. And so our third goal is focused on precisely that. And I want to just again publicly thank the school committee. We are well underway with the school year and well underway with our what seemed like a crazy 4-day schedule, and it's working because I can confidently sit in front of you and say that every child at the Pierce Middle School is receiving a health education every year, and every child at the Pierce Middle School is running that mile, whether they like it or not, during physical education class, and doing so many more things than just that. But it makes me feel much better as a principal knowing that that's happening, and that's directly due to the support from the school committee. In addition to that, we submitted a grant 2 weeks ago now, we should hear soon, a grant that would support a self-assessment at the Pierce Middle School to really identify which areas we are strong in and which areas we might need work in really supporting the social, emotional, mental health of students. And that grant supports both the actual use of the tool and self-assessment and some support from the Department of Ed to do that, as well as professional development for teachers around best supporting students, all students in the classroom. And so we will hear about that, and we have another one in the wings for next week. And then also really thinking about looking at data and collecting data and analyzing data for participation in extracurricular activities in the same way that we look at it for effectiveness of these other interventions that we have implemented. And so that's work under this goal that we are also doing.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
What tool are you using to do the screening?
There's a tool that was developed by a group in conjunction with the Department of Education, the Behavioral Health School Assessment.
Okay.
I'm going to double check to make
Yeah.
sure that's
Yeah.
the actual name of it. It's on the Department of Ed website, and it's basically a series. They have 6 key areas: leadership, professional development, curriculum, those policy, protocol, and there's a series of questions, and a team. They recommend that a school-based team answer those questions together, and then it gives you feedback with very specific action steps that are linked to areas of weakness. So that you can draft an action plan based on the self-assessment.
I'm glad I asked because I thought it was a screening tool for students.
Oh, no, it's no, sorry.
I was very curious in that, I don't think
Although
that's
that data can
bad
be
thing.
useful
Right.
and interesting, and we've talked about that as well. No, it's a self-assessment tool for the school.
So we thought
to
the same
identify
thing.
areas.
Okay, I'm glad I asked that.
I'm very glad you asked.
And then I had another question about that, if it's okay?
Please proceed.
Okay. You talked about data. I mean, clearly Pierce is always, under your leadership, has always been very data-driven on all aspects academically, and I love to, I love to see all this social, emotional data too. And I was glad to hear you say that you're going to try to measure the data for what kids and how many participate in after-school programs. So I would be very curious about that data. What are the difficulties? Is it a bus ride home? Is it the fee? What stops some kids? Blah, blah, blah. And I would be very interested in hearing about that because I do think there are some barriers for kids on that. And I had some other things, but I can talk to you about the Health and Wellness Committee too, just about some other ideas. But I think that's great that you guys are taking this on as a goal, and I appreciate that.
Oops, I moved too fast. So we do have some work ahead of us as well. I'm going to hand the microphone.
The work of the Pierce Site Council never ends. In fact, we were just talking about our agenda for our 7 o'clock meeting tomorrow morning. But seriously, the next steps for us are to, first of all, focus on the school improvement plan. I know that a draft of the school improvement plan has been shared with the school committee. In the next 10 days, we will finalize that. And to measure our progress, we're going to be establishing benchmarks. And it's important to note that the benchmarks we'll be setting are two different types. The first is a process benchmark, so that will let us not have to wait until the end of the year to determine what the results were and whether we've had an impact. So we'll have a way to monitor along the way, are we following the path we set out to? And the outcome benchmarks will really be the criteria that determine whether we had an impact. What was the success that we had by implementing this plan? So along the way, we'll also take into consideration other observations or any other data or insights that might present themselves to try and evaluate how our progress has impacted our goals. And at the end of the year, we intend to celebrate success.
So we have listed here for you a few events that we have, a couple of shout-outs and a few events that we have coming up soon. The Pierce Middle School cross-country team had its last meet today at Quincy. The buses were pulling in as I was pulling out to get up here. So I'll get those results to you. Congratulations on the previous slide. There was a group of students proudly holding certificates. That was our 280 club. We had 45 students who scored a 280 in one or more of the MCAS tests. We're very proud of the Pierce Middle School Student Council, who does a lot of this time of year. They'll be collecting food for the food bank. They'll be collecting toys. They'll be collecting towels for the dog shelter later. And they do a lot of work together and bring the community of the Pierce Middle School together to really support the needs of others. Looking forward, we have some concerts coming up. December 4th, the grade 7 and 8 concert, December 11th, 6th grade. As always, the very talented Pierce players have Oklahoma coming up in January. We do invite you to that as well. And coming up a little bit sooner, if you're in the area of the Pierce Middle School on November 13th, is our student, staff and faculty flag football game. There were some practices going on this week, which were entertaining. And all of the proceeds, Mr. Moonen, are you quarterback? I don't know. Kind of. Okay. Tickets are $2 each, and the funds are all going to support families in need, which is an effort among the Pierce Middle School, led by the Pierce Middle School guidance counselors, to support identified families in need at the Pierce Middle School around the holidays time. So we encourage you to attend. Anything else? Good. We do appreciate, again, your support and your listening to us again. And I predict you probably have questions for us.
I asked mine already.
Okay. Mr. Zulus?
As opposed to my wildlife eating the plants question, this is mildly serious. There was a reference in the materials to the science texts being outdated and not well aligned prior to 2013, 2014. Has that been rectified?
Yes, thanks to Advancement Budget 1.0. The FOSS curriculum units come with readers, which are both up to date, but also use reading text materials in the way they should be used in a science classroom to support the science explorations as opposed to being all of what students learn. So yes, thanks again.
Ms. Sheridan?
Thank you. That was yet again another wonderful presentation from Pierce Middle School. You're all to be commended for your work on the School Site Council. It's a tremendous presentation. And I know behind every single slide and every single comment are gobs and gobs of work. So I just want to ask you, how much time does the School Site Council spend meeting? Because I appreciate those 7 a.m. meetings. I know them well. how, do you meet once a month? Do you meet more often than that? And obviously, you commented that you did meet during the summer as well.
Our regular meeting is once a month, so it's the first Thursday of each month at 7 a.m. And then we also sprinkle in additional meetings as necessary, and sometimes that's the whole group or the subgroup, or depending on what kind of work. We do a lot of via email feedback as well.
So 1 hour once a month, or?
1 hour, the regular meeting is 1 hour once a month, and then additional meetings sprinkled in between them, and summertime.
And then the other comment I just wanted to make is, I think, Dr. Spalding, you mentioned several times throughout the presentation about the grants that you're writing. And I know, again, that's something that takes a lot of time and talent, and I'm sure many hands are played in that, but I just want to thank you for all of your work on that, because those grants that you write bring in opportunities that we as a school committee would love to be able to, give you the money for, but sometimes it's not there. And your creativity and really intelligence in seeking them out and writing them well and getting them accepted is to be commended, so thank you.
Ms. Kelly, nothing?
Thank you very much for the presentation, and I just want to comment on all of the breadth of knowledge that you all bring to this. You can tell that it's not, I used to be on a site council a long time ago, and sometimes we would come to these meetings and really the document was put together sort of maybe, a couple of days before, and we were just reading. You guys, the way you're talking about it, just are examples of how you're vested in it and how you're participants, and that's actually what site councils are supposed to be all about, so I commend you all. It's a lot of time and effort, but obviously it's a labor of love. So you had mentioned the science STEM classes, so what is it that you need to get all students experiencing STEM classes before they leave, or what's the vision for the STEM classes, and what do you need to get that accomplished?
The vision would be at least the opportunity for every student who wanted to take, for example, a STEM elective for us to have enough seats for that to happen. And so in order for that to happen, we actually have, and we're in the early stages of conversation. I'm probably being glared at right now by Mrs. Chiappetta because we're still working out the finer details. But our thinking for phasing in would be to reconfigure or restructure through one of our computer class offerings, which we did with the iSTEM computer class that we have right now, and sort of rethinking about how we teach computers. And students these days come in already knowing way too much, a lot about computers and how to use them, and there's a basic skill set of presentation and word processing and things like that you want to make sure they have, and many of them have it already coming in, which is different from how it used to be. And so integrating some of the STEM, Dr. Leif Lagueros and Greg Forge is our computer teacher, went together to a Project Lead the Way conference and met with other schools that are implementing it. And so we're looking at ways in which we might integrate that into some existing computer courses, not completely replace them, but just, again, rethink them in a 21st century way. And then in terms of what we need, so that will get us a little bit closer. It may, in the end, be additional FTE, but I hesitate to say that until we really best structure the resources that we have now. But that's a possibility.
Thank you. And I think Dr. Spalding might be holding back for Ms. Chiappetta to share during the science workshop, during the science presentation, the work that they've been doing at Worcester Polytech. And so I think in the next presentation, they're doing a tremendous amount of research about what courses are out there and the continuum and what a plan would be for implementation. I don't think you want to steal her thunder. I think you will hold her back.
That's right.
Mrs. Kelly, hold, and your question will be answered.
I could talk
Good
about science
question.
and STEM all night.
Well, I would say you had me at the mission statement. It was pretty impressive. And for those of you on the site council that don't already work for us, you're all hired. The quality of the planning, the quality of the analysis, and the quality of the results is just extraordinarily impressive. And I had the pleasure of attending a few site council meetings earlier in the spring, so it's really gratifying to see how that's all come together. But I think the format that you're suggesting for school improvement plan is right on. I think it's clear. I think it touches on the right things. It identifies who's accountable, who's responsible, which is a step many planners miss. So I well done. Just keep doing what you're doing, and as Ms. Kelly said, if there's any way that we can help you with resources, we're happy to do it. Because you're celebrating success that you've already had, and if we can help you continue to do that, everyone benefits. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask to the table, we have a presentation of our K-12 science and STEM programs. Would you like to join us at the table? So this is a perfect segue from the good combination of the PS Site Council and K-12 Science. I'd like to introduce the school committee and the viewing public. We have Christy Chiapetta with us, Middle School Science Coordinator, Amy Tom, Milton High School Science Department Head, Bernadette Moonen, our Elementary Science Coordinator, and a special welcome to John Diamond, who's taken on the leadership in the robotics world in the Milton Public Schools to round out our team. So if the school committee would take STEM presentation, and we'll turn this presentation over to the science team. And before I turn it over to the team, I'd like to recognize you and recognize to the school committee and thank you that you have become a team. You immediately bonded, and you complement one another, you learn from one another, you have mentored one another, and as a result, I think the school committee is going to be very impressed. We talked about a plan. We've almost come to that point of a formalized plan, but the options you've created, the work you're doing looking ahead for science in the Milton Public Schools and STEM, I want to thank you.
Thank you. What we are planning to do tonight is share with you some of the exciting things that are happening in STEM and science here in the district. We're going to begin by presenting some data briefly, and then we're going to discuss first STEM and then science at all three levels from the lens of where are we now and where do we hope to go. So this data has already been presented by principals at previous presentations, but we wanted to share it with you again because this is the data that drives all of the work that we are doing around science and STEM in the district. So it's just a historical perspective on the MCAS for science, technology, and engineering at 5th, 8th, and 10th grade, and then the high school biology MCAS for 9th and 10th grade.
So I'm going to begin tonight's presentation at the elementary level. Take it out. I'll begin tonight's presentation to speak to the STEM experiences that we have currently in grades 1, 2, and 3 in the English Innovation Pathway. But I do want to note that later in the presentation, I'll be speaking more to the general science curriculum, and I wanted to note that all students, regardless of if they're in the English Innovation Pathway or the French Immersion Program, are exposed to STEM experiences through their general science curriculum, including the FOSS program that I'll go into a little bit more detail about later. But for right now, I just would love to take the opportunity to highlight the exciting things that are happening right now in the grade 1, 2, and 3 classrooms in the English Innovation Pathway, and some things that we are thinking about going forward to expand this program. So currently, the first grade classrooms are implementing the Lego engineering curriculum, which was designed with a partnership through Tufts a few years ago. So this is the third year of implementation for these first grade classrooms. I was lucky enough to be a first grade teacher the year that this was piloted, and I really can't say enough about how amazing it is to see first graders act and think like engineers and persist in solving a problem and collaborate with one another to design and redesign and redesign and redesign and defend their answers through this program. So it's been a delight to watch as a teacher, and now in the position as an elementary science coordinator, it really is fantastic. In second grade, the students are engaged in the Lego We Do robotics program. So this is now the second year this program has been implemented in grade 2. And this program allows students to build simple robots using Legos, and then they program these robots by using this developmentally appropriate computer programming software, the Lego We Do robotics program. And they build programs that allow their robots that they built themselves to move and make sound, and they learn that computers and robots don't just work magically on their own, but someone is behind the scenes creating these computer programs, which is a really important part of it. Now, in grade 3, this has expanded to implement the creative computing curriculum. So this felt to me like a really nice way to expand the program, because the students are getting more in depth about computer programming, but we're taking away that hands-on piece of the robot. So in second grade, they've learned what a computer program does because they see it actually manipulating this robot. Now that they have that concept down, in third grade, we take that away and they use the creative computing curriculum to build different programs using Scratch. And Scratch is a computer programming language that was developed at the MIT Media Lab. So our third grade English innovation teachers were involved in a professional development experience earlier this year with Michelle Chung, who is one of 3 co-authors of the creative computing curriculum. And that was a really special day for our third grade teachers. A lot of them walked into the room a little apprehensive. They may have never heard of Scratch, or they were a little weary about jumping right in. And by the time they left, they were laughing and having fun with each other and building computer programs that told a story. So it was really nice to see their shift in thinking, and it's been really great to see this implemented in classrooms and see what students can do. One of the best parts about creative computing is that it can be adapted to incorporate math, science, reading, writing. So students can use this computer programming program to incorporate other content areas, which really is the goal. So that's been very fun. As far as where we're going, I'm starting to explore options, or I'm continuing to explore options for what this will look like next year in grade 4. 2 that come to mind are code.org, which is another curriculum that would further enhance the exploration of computer programming. And the Milton Public Schools did partner with code.org a little bit last year through the Hour of Code, and that was a week-long period where schools were encouraged to have all students participate in 1 hour of computer coding using the code.org website. So it was free curriculum where the kids could engage in these activities, and at the elementary level, we loved it. Kindergartners were coding, teachers were coding, 5th graders were coding. Janet Sheehan got to see it as the principal of the Collycott School, and we just had so much fun with it. So that's one option that we're looking into, and I'm attending a full-day Saturday professional development on that in December, and looking forward to learning more about it. And the other option that I'm looking into at this point is Project Lead the Way, which Karen referred to a little bit in her last presentation. It sounds like a really exciting option. I had a chance to meet with some of the representatives from Project Lead the Way at a recent STEM summit, and we'll be learning more about this program soon. But it's a program that allows students to engage in engineering and design while aligning it to the Common Core and science standards. So that's something we're exploring, and we're also thinking about ways to enhance the professional development around STEM in Milton. And we wanted to include some pictures of these programs in action. So you'll see this at each level, but right here what we have is a very proud first grader showing off his car that he designed and redesigned after testing it. That's a hard skill for anyone, but especially for a first grader to not just say, I built it and it's done, but to be able to think through the process of the engineer design process and think about ways to improve upon their design. So that car was something he was very proud of, and then he drew and wrote about it. In second grade, you see a few students working together to build the Dancing Birds robot, and then it being plugged into the computer, and you can see the beginnings of a computer program for the Dancing Birds. So they worked together to make the birds move in one direction together, in the other direction together, and then actually in opposite directions. So it was really fun and exciting for them. And then over on the other side are a few clips from the creative computing curriculum. So that's a little snapshot of what Scratch might look like on a screen. And there are a couple students engaging on it on desktop computers. We'll move on to middle school now.
I'm excited to share with you some of the unique STEM opportunities we have available to our students at the Pierce. As Karen mentioned in her presentation, we offer intensive studies in science, technology, engineering, and math, our iSTEM courses. And this year we're currently offering 3 courses, one in computers, one in advanced math, and one in advanced science. We also have a variety of past classes that are offered to students after school. Right now, we're offering engineering design, rocketry, there's a coding programming course, and robotics. We are continuing, we're already in discussions in the spring with some of our science teachers and some of our math teachers about other opportunities they might like to pursue with students. Science fair help becomes a big sort of club past class, which we'll talk about later as we talk about the science fair. We were fortunate last year in the spring to receive a $10,000 grant from the Blue Hills Charitable Foundation to support fieldwork in environmental science. With this grant, we purchased 2 curriculum units that we're going to be using in our science iSTEM course. In addition, we purchased a lot of equipment for fieldwork around ponding and outdoor, just in general, data collection that both the iSTEM and our 7th grade science curriculum will be using this year. Thanks to the generous support of the Milton Foundation for Education, we were able to purchase Lego Mindstorm materials, which were used for a summer content institute that happened this past summer. And those Lego materials are currently being used for a past class on robotics. And also, we are in plans to think about how we can use them with our 7th grade planetary science curriculum to do a link for 7th graders who are in computer programming and taking that planetary science as part of their science curriculum to think about how they could build Mars rovers. So that's our next grant we're thinking about pursuing and currently working on, I guess. We also have science fair as a mandatory requirement for students in our science iSTEM course, which has enabled us to guarantee some solid participation. Although it's open to all students in the entire school, we know we have this sort of base of students that are working on it, and we're continuing to try to think about how we can always advance that level of participation. These are some of our more enthusiastic students. So it gets us a core group of 7th graders who participate the first time in 7th grade and then are often very excited to pursue it again in the 8th grade.
Ms. Chapetta, for this, I know the school committee knows, but perhaps the viewing audience, when you talk about past classes, would you explain?
Yes, so those, and I may need some correction on this, but they are 8-week after-school classes that are offered by teachers as an elective. I believe there's a small fee associated with them, but it can be waived for students as well. So we offer past classes in they could be a sports past class, it could be anything. I actually think Mr. Stote offers one on cinematography. There's all kinds of different ones, but we've been working really hard to try to incorporate some of those STEM opportunities as well.
That's really to Mrs. Kelly's point. Those are for students who aren't in one of the iSTEM classes in school. Our goal would be for all students who are at the Pierce Middle School, but you're creating those options in the after-school program.
Yes. In terms of where we're going, we are always trying to further develop the iSTEM courses that we do offer. So we're trying to think about how we can sort of increase the opportunities that we have. It's this really unique chance to do something different for kids because it's sort of beyond our regular curriculum. So we're always trying to enhance those, but we are also working really hard to increase the opportunities to enable all students to participate. So as we talked about earlier, we have a plan to pilot an expanded STEM curriculum next year. It's not going to be able to reach all students, but we are going to be able to reach a larger number of students, in part because we realize that there are a lot of students that could really benefit from that hands-on opportunity. We want to try to maximize the impact of STEM. One of the things that we are looking at is Project Lead the Way. It's a nationally recognized curriculum, but the Massachusetts and possibly even the New England sort of home base for it is at WPI. And so they run all of their professional development out of there, and that is where sort of the lead of the project for this area is. We met with them, both Bernadette and I, at the STEM Summit and heard a lot more about their program. They offer a sequence of courses. The first course is on design and modeling. It's sort of a general engineering type course. And that, for us, ideally, all students would have access to. It's sort of a baseline technology engineering course that is aligned to the new state science standards that are taking effect next year. And if kids were exposed to this course, from there, there's then a menu of very rich and exciting courses that they could move on to. And actually, technically, you don't have to take the design and modeling course, but in talking with them, it would give all students a very solid foundation that would allow them to be successful in those other courses. So there were things like medical detectives, robotics. The next step was sort of a large menu of lots of different opportunities.
So I'd like to recognize Ms. Gepetter and Dr. Spalding because their work with this really organization working out of Worcester Polytech. We thought that if the intermediate STEM program began to work out of that program, it would be a perfect lead-in to the middle school and build on those skills. But again, Ms. Moon is still exploring finishing out the 4th and 5th grade STEM experience, but it would be a perfect continuum from K through grade 8.
So we also have some pictures to share with you tonight to help you get a sense of our program. The first pictures we have are pictures of our students on a field trip, for the iSTEM students for science, learning about the Cape Cod Canal. They've done research projects in class, and then they took a visit to the canal where they learned all about the sort of history and the engineering behind the canal, and now they are, as Ms. Flanagan talked about, currently developing teacher's guides to help teach people about the Cape Cod Canal. In the middle, you see some pictures of students participating in a PASS class. This particular PASS class is one on engineering design challenges. The teacher facilitating it uses a variety of different engineering curriculum that are available to have kids completing these challenges. And then the third set on the right is photos of the robots from, these I believe are from the Summer Content Institute using the Lego Mindstorms, but we also have students continuing work on them in a PASS class after school.
Can I ask a question?
Ms. Bagley Jones?
Before we go on to the high school, you're going on to high school, right? When I look at what you said, and sort of what I said before, but a little bit differently, when you say where are we going, and it says increase opportunities to enable all students, I like that language, but I'd like it to be more specific and directive. I mean, I'm really a big supporter of the STEM program, but I always get a little disappointed when I hear it's for the kids that are already doing fairly well in many areas, because so many different learning challenges for kids could be really impacted by this hands-on kind of stuff. So I worry that those kids who might fly under the radar aren't going to get aren't going to apply or be a part of it, or have somebody notice that they're not applying because they're the kids flying under the radar. So they stay in the back of the room and they don't, whatever. And then I also think our advancement budget has been so focused on getting our subgroups academic achievement up that this to me feels like, wait a minute, this should be more connected to that. So those are just my observations and thoughts. And I'm very supportive of what you're doing and appreciative of it, but I'd like to see that first line under where we're going, especially because Dr. Spalding is so good at writing grants, to be about how do we get all kids to get this hands-on type of experience? Not to make more work for you.
Well, absolutely. I look forward, further in my presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit more around our work at the Pierce, and particularly in science, around those proficiency gaps. But one of the things Dr. Spalding, Dr. Legaros, and Greg Forge and I had a meeting to try to sort of think through what's our plan for STEM. And a big topic of that discussion was really recognizing that this is an opportunity to support some of our students who may have academic challenges to really have the exposure. And one of the benefits, part of our plan next year, is to really work it into that computer programming coursework. And many of those students are students that wouldn't necessarily be the same students that would be in those iSTEM courses. It's serving a different student population. That's a much more general population elective. So I actually think in working it in there, it will fit really nicely. In this particular program, the Project Lead the Way, and talking more with them about that introductory course, which we're hoping to implement, it really has a lot more around, it's a lot about drawing, sort of designing these gliders. Actually, the very first activity is one of Dr. Spalding and my favorite things to do with kids, which is a take-apart shop where kids just take apart some sort of device, whether it's an electronic thing, and just try to figure out what makes it work. So it's a lot about using tools and taking things apart. And so it's a very different way to think about design and modeling that I think will address those kids.
Great.
I want to do that.
So before I begin about high school, I do apologize for my voice. I'm at the very end of a cold, so it's kind of in and out a little bit today. So I'll try to make it through as efficiently as I can, our couple slides on high school. And where I'd like to start with STEM at Milton High School is going back a little bit to the school year 2008-2009, when we first introduced, with our dedicated teachers and the help of Milton Foundation for Education, our biotechnology lab, which in a short 6 years has truly grown at the high school level. And for the first time this year, we've offered two distinct biotechnology courses, an introductory semester course to get students kind of engaged and interested. It's only a half a year, so we have that kind of hook to it. And if the students are hooked in that introductory course, we now offer a full year course, which goes into more of the ideology and the theory behind biotechnology, getting kids into labs out in the field. We do have them go on to careers, to school field trips. We had one just a couple weeks ago where students heard lectures of biotechnologists, the different science fields that they're doing in industry at the college and university level as well. And also getting students using newer equipment, experiences that they have here, which several students in their high school careers may not have that opportunity and see it for the first time at the college or university level. So we're really excited and really appreciative to allow our students that opportunity here at Milton High School. Where we've gone more recently in 2013 to actually this coming spring semester is 6 teachers at Milton High School are going through a STEM certification program that we've received through Blue Hill grants applied and also been accepted for. And these 6 teachers will become STEM certified through the Krista McCullough Center, which is through Framingham State. And it's run by a company known as PTC, Parametric Technology Corporation. So just a quick blurb about PTC and what they do. They are a private company who develops software for big name companies such as Boeing, Rolls-Royce, and also different fields within the military. And what this software does is it allows product design. So the project managers that we have located here in Needham, Massachusetts, have tried to take what PTC offers out to the corporate world and bring it into the classrooms. So they've offered a 2-part course to the STEM certification. And as our teachers have gone through the first part, they've learned about what the software is, what can the teachers do with it, and what can they bring into the classroom to allow the students to do with it. What can they build, what can they design? And then in the second part of the course, teachers have actually designed a unit that incorporates engineering and technology to curriculum and content standards. And we'll talk a little bit about where we would like our 6 teachers to go with what units they've developed and they've offered through this opportunity.
I would also like to talk a little bit about implementation of something called Biograph. Biograph is a computer simulation program that's been developed by MIT, the Media Lab that Bernadette was referencing earlier, and UPenn. And what this goal is to bring STEM specifically into the biology classroom. So for the past 2 years, I've worked with MIT and UPenn to learn how this should be implemented, how it connects with the science, technology, engineering frameworks, as well as the next generation science standards that are being implemented and released nationwide. And last year I worked with all of our high school biology teachers in June, training them on this software, on this programming. And so far this year, we've implemented 2 out of the 5 actual content pieces. And we'll see a couple pictures of that on the next slide that the students have gone through. But again, this is trying to really bring the technology, the engineering piece to the science content. So taking those integrative aspects of STEM and incorporating them into our science disciplines that we have here at the high school. And lastly, we're working currently with the Advancement Initiative to help purchase laptops and various lab equipment that will be used across all of our science classes with all of our science teachers to, again, get the technology into the classrooms to allow our students with various sensors, various probes, whether it's on something of pH levels, temperature levels, light photons, analyzing data and how to make it applicable to real-world situations. So with all the talking that Bernadette and Christy have done, this next implementation piece of where are we going was actually a collaboration between myself and our mathematics department chair, Courtney Miller. And we want to look at where can we go from here with all of the work that's being done at the elementary schools, all of the work that's being done at Pierce to challenge our students once they reach the high school level. And with all the goals that we have, how can we still keep them engaged with the increase of skills that they're going to have when they get to the high school in a few years? So going back to the STEM certification course, we're hoping to begin implementation next year, the 2015-2016 school year. All of the authored units that our teachers have designed, implementing them into our classrooms here at Milton High School and getting that engineering, getting that technology component into our math classes and into our science classes. We hope after that to become or create a full STEM elective, for example, engineering of the future or engineering by design. So now focusing on the technology, on the engineering standards, and integrating it beyond just science and math, but also bringing in the history, the English, and the arts as well into that elective. And then further going along, year 3 down the line of our implementation goal is looking at broadening those electives, knowing that our students are going to have an increased skill in terms of technology and engineering and allowing them the courses that they can experiment with those skills. For example, a course potentially such as astronomy, or also using the model that our humanities department has used with our debate class being competitive, is turning our robotics elective that we have now and working with Mr. Diamond and making this school day course our competitive course as well. The last little note up here is that with PTC, their software is quite expensive. And to run it in multiple computers, we're looking at a price tag of about $60,000 per computer. So if they see that our teachers are working on this implementation piece, the students are engaging in these curriculums, these authored design units, and you are showing them your progress as a STEM initiative in our curriculums, they do award schools the opportunity to become a PTC Academy, where all of that is donated for free. And hopefully with this implementation plan, that we can become a PTC Academy, be recognized by PTC, and continue to work with them in the future on developing new units and also all of the software updates that their company goes through as well.
Wow.
Zulus?
So how many, if you're a PTC Academy, how many computers do they outfit?
So for however many courses we need, we will get that number of licenses to meet our students.
That's a great goal.
So just to show you some work that we are doing now in the field of STEM already, in the upper left-hand corner, we're looking at some of Miss Parsons' students in her elective of the robotics, that the students build their own individual robots and have their in-class competition amongst themselves on design and whatever other challenges they may be given, again, as a class. If we move down to the bottom left-hand corner, also our computer science, also taught by Ms. Parsons at the high school, we did receive a grant that allowed us to purchase a 3D printer. So what you're looking at, what those expo markers are held in, was actually created by students using computer software and was printed with our 3D printer. So it has become a very popular elective in students engaging in what can they build that can be useful not only in the classrooms, but what can we build, design, and give to teachers to make effective in the classrooms for the teachers and the students as well. Moving towards the middle of the screen, we're looking at students actively engaged in our biotechnology lab, again, where they have the ability to create synthetic DNA, run DNA with state-of-the-art software that we had a huge donation of last year, as well as analysis and learning the new techniques that are being applied not only in industry, but also what they would see during their college or university experience. And again, a similar picture as to what Bernadette had. As the biograph simulations are also from the MIT Media Lab, our student skills coming out of the elementary schools, they will have seen this format before, which puts them as a step ahead to now knowing how to do the blocks, the coding in their computer software program, and then students applying it onto those screens, the Chromebook screens, to run a software. So for example, the last one that our students engaged in last week was all about cell transport and how once we take molecules, nutrients, for example, drinking a soda, once it goes into the body, how does it move through all of the layers in the body to get into the bloodstream and move around.
Okay, now moving on into elementary science. I just want to start by saying that this year in science at the elementary level, specifically in grades 3, 4, and 5, has been so exciting and such a difference from last year and in the years I'm imagining previous. It's just so evident that science is a priority and that you can overhear teachers talking about science and comparing student science notebooks and talking about these little critters that are being delivered to their doors and just having so many meaningful conversations that weren't taking place before because the teachers didn't have the materials to implement science in an effective way. So I just want to say that it's been an exciting year and I'm looking forward to the rest of it in the years to come. So thanks to the advancement budget, teachers are feeling supported, and we have a full-time elementary science coordinator, which is myself, and I spend time in each school each week. I participate in grade level meetings. I'm in classrooms observing lessons. We're having meaningful conversations around student writing in science and the activities that are taking place in the classroom. Teachers love having these brand new science materials in their hands. It's so funny to get emails and phone calls and requests from 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers for more crayfish or more snails or more bugs. They've really taken a liking to it. They can see the inspiration in the students' eyes, and it's just really contagious. So with the help of the advancement budget, we do have the elementary science coordinator. We do have a new science curriculum in grades 3, 4, and 5, and that is the full option science system, which will be referred to as FOSS. So it is aligned with science, technology, and engineering standards. Each grade level has a life science, an earth and space science, and a physical science unit, so it's well-rounded. And in addition, teachers have already attended one full day of professional development per grade level. So the 3rd grade teachers attended a full day, the 4th grade teachers attended a full day, and the 5th grade teachers attended a full day. And just to let you know, too, that I had referred to the English Innovation Pathway in the 3rd grade professional development being a really powerful session, but this FOSS professional development session for these teachers was invaluable. They walked out of there so excited to teach science. We were so lucky to have this woman named Johanna Strange from Kentucky, who's a FOSS trainer. She came here, and she was one of those people that is just so enthusiastic and organized and passionate. And the teachers just took such a liking to her. They were having these dynamic conversations. They got to dig right into some of the investigations the students would be doing. And actually, the third grade teachers, during their lunch break, pooled their money. They took it amongst themselves to pool some money and buy this trainer flowers on their lunch break and present them to her as a thank you. I can't say enough about this. It was just so fantastic, and she continues to email and ask about specific teachers and how is she doing with this. I know she was a little nervous, and the teachers have been emailing her. It was just a really nice bond and a good way to kick off a new curriculum that seemed a little intimidating for many teachers. So that's definitely been a positive aspect. In addition, some exciting things that are happening related to the FOSS units are the use of science notebooks in every 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classroom. This is huge because it's a documentation of student learning. They can see where they were at the beginning and where they are now. They're referring back to notes that they may have taken 2 weeks ago. I've been in classrooms, I've seen them in action, and they are not just for show. These are being used every day, and the kids really rely on them. They're going back and adding to notes that they had taken during an activity before. So it's really exciting to see that, and we're hoping that that will improve student writing in science and keep a documentation of student growth and achievement in the classroom. In addition, FOSS does embed science assessments, and those include open responses. They include pre and post tests. So teachers are using them in the classroom. They're having conversations about what they're noticing, and we're going to continue to refine these assessments and make them work for Milton. So we may be pulling from some past MCAS questions and using some of the FOSS assessment questions to create something that really is meaningful for teachers to use to drive their instruction in science. Some other exciting things that have been happening in the elementary schools is the successful science fairs that have taken place thanks to the tremendous effort of parents at each school. We're really lucky to have groups of parents that are really dedicated to science education. Some pockets of parents are really interested in spearheading the science fairs, where others are more interested in the outdoor classroom initiative. So we're very lucky to have that, and I'm happy to say that last year I attended and was part of 4 very well-attended, fun, and successful science fairs in each school. Another thing to highlight is that the Science from Scientists program, which began as a pilot last year in the Cunningham and Collycott 5th grade classrooms, has now expanded into all 4 schools in all of the 5th grades. So this means that 2 scientists visit each 5th grade classroom on a biweekly basis, and they deliver a hands-on science lesson that's aligned to standards. So it's the same 2 scientists that visit the same classroom throughout the year. So the teacher develops this working relationship with the scientist and can have conversations and ask questions about different topics, and they actually get to watch a science topic taught by someone else, which is really powerful for teachers to see. And students also develop a relationship with the scientists, and they learn to love science and become interested in it. So that's exciting. Teachers can also earn PDPs through this program by writing and implementing follow-up lessons to what the scientists teach, and they have to submit their lessons to the scientists and get feedback and have conversations around science instruction. So that's an exciting piece of that we are exploring currently. When we look ahead about where we are going with science at the elementary level, something that does come to mind is the kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade science curriculum, and thinking about ways to enhance or align that science curriculum to standards and making it a more meaningful experience for all of our kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade students. So that when they get to 3rd grade and become involved in these dynamic FOSS units, they're ready for it. They're used to using science notebooks, or they're used to having these hands-on experiences. So that's something that we are thinking about. Another thing is to continue the implementation of the FOSS unit. So it's a multi-year plan. We followed Pierce's lead after purchasing the curriculum. We didn't want to implement it all at once in an effort not to overwhelm teachers. So all teachers are implementing 2 new science units this year, and then next year we'll implement the remaining unit. So to continue that as a goal. Also to continue professional development experiences around curriculum instruction and the new draft standards that are currently out for all teachers K to 5. to continue to use and develop the science assessments that are in FOSS, and also we're excited that the Milton Foundation for Education is focusing on STEAM for their celebration event, so we're looking forward to bringing more enrichment in that area to the elementary level. And also thinking about outdoor classroom experiences for every school. So as I mentioned before, we do have some dedicated parents at each school that are interested in working with me and with classroom teachers to give students the opportunity to get outside and get their hands dirty. But every school has a different layout and is in a different stage of that. So working with teachers and parents to make that a meaningful experience for all.
Ms. Moonen, before you leave, one of your bullets on the top, and you deserve a tremendous amount of credit for this, the relationship you developed with the Milton Foundation for Education around Sam's Fund, and it's very timely for you to share the funds from that race where they are targeted.
Thank you. I must have missed that, but I'm not looking at the slides, I'm looking at my notes, so thank you for pointing that out.
And you would be modest in skipping that because Bernadette Moonen the MFE gave Bernadette a tremendous amount of credit in the success of this year's Monster Dash and the enthusiasm that you created in the district and the work that you do with the MFE.
Well, I feel lucky to have the Milton Foundation for Education working with me because they do so much work and they use the children as their compass. All they're thinking about is what is going to benefit these kids in the classrooms. And last year, I was lucky enough to partner with the Monster Dash chairs, and we met very frequently and talked about ideas that would enrich what's already going on in the classrooms. And I was lucky enough to have an elementary science table at the Monster Dash last year where kids could come and interact with some different science activities. And last year, we were able to purchase enrichment materials or experiences for every grade level K to 5. Which was exciting because in past years it had been more field trip experiences for grades 3, 4, and 5. And as a former first grade teacher, I really wanted to make sure that our youngest learners were getting some of the benefit from that as well. So that was really powerful and exciting last year. We just had the Monster Dash a few weeks ago. It was wildly successful. It was a great day all around. I saw some people there. And it was just fun. There were so many happy people there. Kids were at the elementary science table. We had Science from Scientists come and volunteer their time to staff a table where they had interactive activities that came right from some of the lessons that will be in the 5th grade classrooms. We had the Trailside Museum there with an owl display inside of Cunningham Hall. And I am working right now with teachers and administrators and the Milton Foundation for Education to think about ways that we can use the funds raised from that very, very successful event to enhance what's already happening K to 5. And we had, and with that bullet too, I don't want to leave out also the Blue Hills grant that allowed for some great experiences at the other levels, also allowed for some great experiences at the elementary level. We had the Glover School accepted a grant from Glover School to become a weather bug school. So they have a weather bug station on top of the school. And then with funds from the Monster Dash, every single school, every single grade level has the WeatherBug Achieve software. So teachers can log on to WeatherBug Achieve on the smartboard and see the data streaming from the top of Glover School. So it's this really cool experience. And we also got some science materials from the Blue Hills grant for the Tucker School and some outdoor classroom materials for a first grade teacher at the Cunningham School. So it's all exciting stuff. And again, with some neat pictures of some of the experiences kids K to 5 are having. We have in the top left corner our kindergartners using the discovery ramps and some kindergarten science notebooks that show pictures of the discovery ramps and them explaining their thinking. Those were purchased with funds from the Monster Dash last year, and I actually brought those as one of my activities this year. Kindergartners love these discovery ramps, and they're so fun. The bottom left are some first graders exploring engineering concepts with the Legos. We have Science from Scientists in the middle of the screen. And then up at the top right, some excerpts from science notebooks. And the bottom right are some students in our schools engaging in the FOSS curriculum. So some of the FOSS lessons have students going outside to learn. Some activities are in the classroom, so it's really fun for the kids, and they're having a great time.
So where are we now at the Pierce Middle School in science? I was fortunate to be hired last year as the Pierce was about to implement some exciting science initiative thanks to the advancement budget. Last year, we implemented 3 new science units. We implemented a unit on the nature of light in 6th grade, the first half of a FOSS populations and ecosystems unit in 8th grade, and a unit called experimenting with forces in motion. This year, as year 2 of our implementation plan, we're implementing 3 more units. Our 6th grade teachers are implementing currently, right now, the newest FOSS Earth History unit, and this was actually delayed because it just was released in the spring, so we were able to make some changes to get the most recent version. Our 7th grade teachers are actually going to be implementing the second half of one of those units, the ecosystems unit. The unit itself was very large, and it was actually one of their adjustments that FOSS is actually making is splitting the unit into 2 pieces. So they're working with us to sort of think about how we can just divide it between the 2 grades now. And then our 8th grade teachers are investigating weather and climate as part of a new unit. In addition to that, by the end of this year, we will have developed and implemented common end-of-unit assessments for all of these new units and the units that were our 7th grade units, which were the year before I began. They were relatively new as well. We are also in the process of developing and piloting district-determined measures for science at all 3 grade levels. And we've been spending a lot of time on professional development to support these new units and also to support our teachers' goals this year for the evaluation system around decreasing the proficiency gap. And to just sort of elaborate on that a little further, myself and all of our science teachers have set team goals as part of the new evaluation process, focusing on decreasing proficiency gaps. For science, we are specifically focusing on the achievement gap between our African American Black students and white students. So our professional development at our common planning time team meetings has been around analyzing our data, and we're going to be focusing on implementing and evaluating strategies for engagement.
If I might, Ms. Geppetta, I think this is very important. The school committee hears about the new evaluation tool. We haven't had a presentation on the new evaluation tool, but translated for the layman watching, all of the science teachers will have the same goal. And so, as Christy said in their common planning time, when they're uploading their evidence that you're familiar with to support whether they're achieving their goal, they all have, again, a common goal, a common language, and they're helping one another, and they're working under the direction of their department head. So I know in my conversations with Dr. Spalding, that was really very, for you to do. It was very forward-thinking, and again, it set really a standard for other administrators to put that goal out there and to have all of the teachers own that goal. I want to compliment you.
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to my teachers because this was probably not an easy task to take on. When you think about achievement gap, it's a daunting task, but they were really willing to take a challenge and see what we can do. So a big part of it was we knew what the data said, and now we're really just trying to figure out how do we move the dial here. And so there's a lot of, in the true spirit of science, investigating and trying to see what we can do. But really, for us, and this actually was a teacher-driven idea, our goal is to first target engagement and see, as we're monitoring students and really looking at the students we've identified as the highest need students in our classrooms, how can we increase their engagement? And so that's what a lot of our professional development time is going to be spent on, thinking about that. So in terms of where we are going, we're going to continue to evaluate and adjust our program to take into consideration and align ourselves to the new science and technology engineering standards that were released last year and will go into effect starting next fall. That's the latest word we received as of a few weeks ago. And our new curriculum is well aligned, but there are some new standards that we just need to make sure we're targeting sufficiently, and we have a pretty good plan around that. In the implementation for year one, we operated under the assumption that the new standards were going to be adopted, and as our last word from the state was that they're going to be adopted with minimal changes. So that actually worked out well for us. We also need to continue to develop a system for tracking and analyzing student data. So now I've created a situation where the teachers and myself are collecting a lot of data, and we need to figure out what's our system for analyzing, tracking it, recording it. And so that's something we really need to think about and work on. By hand is a little bit tedious, and we're working out of Excel right now, but we need to investigate some other options around that to think about what we can do with all this data. And then we need to continue to develop and increase our participation in the science fair. And thanks to Bernadette's work at the elementary level, we do have students coming to us really excited about the science fair. And last year at our science fair, we had a lot of parents talking about their kids' experiences in the elementary science fair and how even after elementary they were thinking about things that they wanted to try at the middle school science fair. So that's a real goal of ours in terms of family engagement as well, is to just really think about this is a great opportunity to bring families into our school to see this great work, and how do we increase that, and how do we get more students participating. And so we have some teachers that have already agreed to do science fair help after school. We have students in Pierce Academy. One of my personal goals is to try to figure out how I can work with some of those students to get engaged and take that after school time to really support them. But overall, I think last year was a huge success, and so hopefully that will bring a lot more students back this year for the same thing. And so we also have some pictures to share. On the left side, you have an example of students conducting investigation from the new FOSS Earth History curriculum, and below that are some notebook samples from our 6th graders, which are rather impressive, I must say. We've actually asked one of the 6th grade science teachers to work with some of the elementary teachers as well on their notebooking. On the right side at the top, we have 8th graders working with one of our teachers to graph ocean floor data as part of our new SDC weather and climate unit. And then down below, we have 7th grade students conducting a phase change investigation from our FOSS chemical interactions unit. And while the 7th grade teachers did not get new curriculum as part of the advancement budget, we did spend a significant amount of time both last year and this year on professional development around those units. So each grade level had 3 common planning days last year that we worked on developing pacing charts and aligning to curriculum. And so while those teachers didn't receive new materials, they did receive a lot of professional development on their curriculum to really strengthen it and improve their practice.
So where I'd like to start for science at the high school is one of the biggest driving forces right now is all of the redesign that's gone through all of our science advanced placement courses. So in the past 3 years, our AP Biology, AP Chemistry, and AP Physics courses have been redesigned with new national standards and objectives for the students. The biggest drive behind this redesign is bringing inquiry into our classrooms and also taking the content and having the students apply the information to real-world concepts. So with that, as a full department, we've sat down and we've said, how can we take the redesign at the advanced placement level and make those changes into our curriculum at the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade levels of your introductory biology, chemistry, and physics years at Milton High School to help all of our students increase their inquiry and also increase their application to real-world challenges. So with inquiry, that is actually the high school science team's focus for our goals, our team goals for the evaluation tool. We're looking to implement inquiry into more of what we already have, what can we enhance that exists in terms of the activities and labs, and also, again, apply them to these AP standards, really challenge our students to think outside of the box and outside of the textbook, outside of what the MCAS has, but really push our students into those real-world applications. At the department level, similar as to that you've heard already, is the high school has also received a full-time science coordinator, which the department is very grateful of. And We work very collaboratively together, especially on these next couple of bullets. These are our focuses for this year. All of our teachers have already designed, and we're continuing to implement common end-of-unit assessments. But now what we're doing is, with our common planning time that we've been granted, and again are very appreciative of, is how can we take these assessments and make them better for our students? You know, again, testing that new knowledge, that new concepts of inquiry and application to the content that they receive in the science classroom. Similar to Christy had mentioned, at the Pierce, the high school science department is also working on developing, implementing district-determined measures during our pilot year this year. And again, teachers are collaborating by course and by grade level to what we would like to see in terms of our student growth and assessment. We've expanded this year the number of co-taught courses that we offer at the biology level. The reason that we've focused on biology is because that is our MCAS subject at the high school. So in Massachusetts, the public schools have a choice that they can choose if they would like to do the biology, physics, or chemistry MCAS. And as biology is our freshman course as they enter, and it is a graduation requirement, this is one opportunity we want to give the students upon entering high school so they can focus more on their other courses and their interests as they move through into their further PARCC testing and MCAS testing as well. And to help with that, we've also reintroduced our MCAS preparatory course that's offered in the spring semester to, again, help prepare students who might be identified to higher need, just an extra support before sitting for that exam in June. So where we would like to go, again, as a department working together, is we want to continue to evaluate and adjust our curriculums. Again, as Christy had mentioned, the new frameworks that will be released and implemented for next fall for the science, technology, and engineering frameworks for the state are now addressing the next generation science standards. And again, bringing the critical thinking, the inquiry, and the problem solving into the science classrooms for all science disciplines. As a science department, we started looking at these during the 2013-2014 school year. So we also have a leg up and have started to implement the new standards, and we'll be ready and fully prepared for the implementation next year as well. And we also want to take the time with our common planning time to work on assessing student data better. And a couple things that we're working with right now are school-wide rubrics, the NIAS design rubrics. Specifically in science, we're focusing on critical thinking, problem solving, technology use in the classroom, and effective communication, which could be in a variety of forms, oral communication, visual presentations given by students, again, giving the students kind of a variety. What is their avenue of success that they can use in the science classrooms? And the last thing, just to make a note about, that not only myself, but the mathematics and department head chairs are looking at as well, is different assessment software that exists. We're looking at piloting potentially. We have two right now that we are looking at, Edwin and Galileo assessment programs that will help give our students kind of live feedback on how they're doing with their assessments, on top of our laboratory investigations, on top of our unit assessments, on top of midterm and final exams, just to get them used to other types of questions, again, more critical thinking application pieces that they can see with examples that's not only what we see in our textbooks, in our classrooms, in our experiences here, but also what they may experience outside of these walls at Milton High School. So lastly, just a couple of highlights that we see in science. Our chemistry classes have been very busy this year with hands-on labs and students exploring. This was a fun one that they did last week. The students were very excited. They were working with a little with fire, and they were a little nervous, but turned out to be really, really good success for our teachers and our students. They had a lot of fun with it. In the center section, we're looking at a co-taught course, again, offering our students, two teachers in the classroom, more of that individualized attention during our class periods. And all the way over to the right, we're looking at students working on writing in the science classrooms, because writing has become a big component as essays and open responses are now on all MCAS and AP exams in both short essay and long essay versions for our students. So where we would like to hand it off now is to Mr. John Diamond to talk a little bit about robotics, the competitive robotics teams that we offer at Milton High School.
So we currently have 2 after-school robotics clubs that we offer here at the high school, one of which is brand new to us this year, and it's known as Zero Robotics. This is the first year of us implementing this, and it's pretty fascinating stuff, I think, because it's an international competition. So our students are competing against hundreds of other high schools around the world, not just in the regional area of New England. There's a lot of European teams, and there's an international leaderboard for us to post our scores and kind of check our competition and see how we're doing. It's pretty fascinating stuff. So the whole point of Zero Robotics is you're taking these spheres, they're called, which are synchronized position, hold, engage, and reorient experimental satellites. They're basically giant basketballs. Basketball-sized computers, I guess, is how you would say them. They have tons of sensors all over them. They can be repositioned in 3 dimensions, and the whole thing is that they are done in zero gravity, so they're done out in outer space. They're really fascinating, and the kids just love it. So with the programming, I'm no computer programmer, but the kids are just amazing at it due to Ms. Parsons' robotics and their computer science classes offered here. I get a lot of whiz kids who come along, and they're like, oh yeah, I know all this, no problem. So they program in C++, which is a foreign language to me, but it's a fairly challenging coding program to run to get these spheres or these satellites to move around and do specific tasks. The finalists of this competition, which ends in about mid-January or so, they are selected to compete in a live championship aboard the International Space Station. Now, they're not like shipped up to the International Space Station or anything, but there are spheres that are already up on the ISS that the astronauts actually use, and so whichever team has the best program and can complete the task most efficiently is, their code is kind of shown by a live astronaut from outer space, and it's broadcasted to the school, and you get to actually see the astronaut perform your code in space aboard the International Space Station. It's pretty fascinating stuff. So we start off with 2D modeling, 2-dimensional modeling, and now we're in the 3-dimensional portion of it, so there's kind of many challenges along the way. But right now we're kind of working on our final code to complete the game challenge, which does change every year. So you're dealing with all 3 dimensions, X, Y, and Z axis, and it's pretty challenging stuff to try and get your little sphere to do this, fairly simple task in outer space with tons of variables at hand. Things get thrown around, and there's a lot of things that really have to be taken into consideration for the students.
May I ask you a question, John, before you leave? This is your first year. Do you think in other school districts, this is a course during the day, or is it all after-school competition against after-school? Or do you know yet?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if other schools actually have a class for this or not, but it is very heavy on the computer programming. It's all done with simulations, and our students actually we meet once a week for a couple hours after school on Mondays, but that's nearly not enough time to really get everything taken care of. So the students actually do a lot of work outside of the school, and they email each other and they post on the website, and they all write their own codes over the weekend, and they get together in their houses and really work on it and take care of some of the coding issues. But I mean, it's a pretty time-consuming task for them, and I'm just impressed with what they can do. So as of right now, I'm not sure if other high schools offer it as a course.
It'll be interesting as you get more involved.
But yeah, to go along with what Amy is saying, for implementation of future STEM courses, this could definitely be something that could align with the AP computer science class or a regular computer science class in general. So something to look forward to. But it's definitely been really fascinating and interesting for the first year, so I'm excited about it. The other robotics club that we offer is currently in its 4th year here at the high school, and this is kind of our bread and butter, I think, is FTC First Tech Challenge Robotics. And this is like the definition of a STEM initiative. This league is really well run, I think. It's growing exponentially in the New England area. It grew 40% last year. There's like twice as many teams this year. It's really taking off, and as a result, we're kind of getting spread out farther and further to go to different schools and compete at different scrimmages and different meets. So with FTC Robotics, you have students designing, building, and programming a robot. So it's not just simulations like with Zero. You're actually hands-on metal parts, gears, wheels, getting your robot to move. There's a driver control portion. There is a program portion. So there's both computer programming and there's actual building. And I do have students who are very hands-on and very experienced with set building from the play. I get all those guys to come fairly soon because the play is this weekend. So I get all of them back, and it's just great to have them back and really contributing to the team. Excuse me. The challenge for this year, the challenge does change every year, just like with Zero Robotics. So this year is going to be different than next year, and it's different than last year. And the games they come up with are fairly challenging to the kids, and they are heavy on the computer programming autonomous stuff, which is they have to design a program where they just press a button and the robot does the specific task on the field with no assistance from them on the driver control portion. Some of the kids who are really excellent in video games just love using the controller so much, but then I got my computer programmers who can just press the button and they can do the exact same task as the driver control portion, so it's pretty excellent. So our team does attend various scrimmages and meets throughout the year to compete in a spot for the state meet, and the state meet is held at Bridgewater State University in March. And
10 scrimmages a year you compete in?
Oh, no, we don't. There are many scrimmages offered. We usually go to about 2 or 3, and then we attend one qualifying meet. Because again, there are so many teams, there's only so much space for each team at each event that they only really allow us to qualify at one meet for the
And for the last 2 years, you've hosted,
Yes.
but you didn't compete when you hosted.
Right. So one thing that we've done the past 2 years is host one of these large meets at the Cunningham Collicott, which is a little challenging because the cafeteria is not too big, and we also use the gymnasium as well. But the past 2 years, we've hosted 20 different high school teams in the regional area that come and they compete. And we're so busy hosting that we don't actually compete ourselves. We just kind of make sure that everything runs smoothly for them. And the kids are amazing. They really are. I mean, they go out of their way to make sure everything runs smoothly, and they essentially run the show. They MC. They make sure that the teams they have everything that they need. They're very supportive. And I also do want to mention how awesome they are with outreach to the elementary school robotics kids, helping with the science fairs. They're always willing to turn on the robot and let the little kids play with it. It's pretty amazing stuff. And one other thing I do want to mention is that PTC is one of our sponsors for FTC. That Amy mentioned before, Parametric Tech Corporation, they do give us a grant yearly. So far, we have been fortunate enough to get one of their grants, and we do use their modeling software that Amy was mentioning before, which is very expensive and also amazing to actually see the kids use it, and it does actually sync with a 3D printer. So hopefully at some point we will kind of be able to get down to the 3D printer and put some of the models to work. Just a few pictures here. Like I mentioned before, we do have 20 different high school teams attending our meet. For the past 2 years, it has been held at the Cunningham Collicott, and we are fortunate enough this year to have the Copeland Fieldhouse booked for February 8th, which is a Sunday, and we are really excited to actually
Circle
have
your
that
calendar.
much more space. The Fieldhouse is gigantic. It's perfect with the tiered seating, and we can use the sides for the pits. We are really excited to be able to host the meet there for the 3rd year in a row. So we're very pleased about that. The last center picture here is our placement last year at our qualifying meet. Milton placed 4th in the robotics tournament out of 32 teams. And we were fortunate enough to win the Rockwell Collins Innovation and Design Award for our robots design. And that's a picture of us, the team and the trophy. And that's about half of our team. The other half was still cleaning up the robot and taking care of everything. But we do have about 15 kids in the FTC robotics program, and we have about 6 for the Zero robotics. So hopefully that number increases next year. That's all I got.
I would like to add just one thing. Mr. Diamond ran a very successful summer program that reached out to interested 4th and 5th grade students all about robotics. It was a week-long camp that took place here at Milton High School, and Mr. Diamond and his robotics team were the instructors for that week. And it was a great fundraiser for the team, but the students also had a lot of fun, and we hope for this to become an annual fundraiser for our robotics club.
Just, he had mentioned what a great job the team does with outreach. I can't say enough about this group of kids on the robotics team. They have in the past come to science fairs, and they do just let the kids play with this robot. They are so fascinated by it. I mean, you had a connection with Marilyn Decker before I was in this position, and they've been doing the science fairs for a while now. and they're fantastic with the kids. And then recently, the Glover School started something similar. They started a First Lego League club, which is somewhat similar but very scaled down to be developmentally appropriate for fifth graders. So there are a few kids in the fifth grade that are involved at that at Glover, but you needed to have this specific field table that was all sorts of, it was just very specific and time consuming. And I ran into one of the robotics kids at the high school and I said, hey, do you know anything about the First Lego League table? And he said, oh, we could build that for you in one day. So I emailed John and they did. We dropped off the wood and they built the table and they were so enthusiastic about helping. They are the kindest group of kids. So I can't say it enough. So thank you and them.
Questions? Ms. Sheridan?
This is just so exciting.
It is amazing.
I just can't even, my kids graduated from Milton High School 8 and 10 years ago, and I have two boys, and they love science, and I just wish that they could go back and experience all these things that you're talking about. I was just like typing away and holding myself back. It was just really exciting. So I'm going to not go into lots of questions, but I just have a couple questions. So Project Lead the Way, is there a cost associated with that? And?
Well, I am currently exploring what this would look like. Each level, so elementary, middle, and high school, would cost different amounts. I think the elementary is the least expensive option out of the three because they're less intensive. I don't think that they last for as long as the middle or high school level do. But they do have the trainer model for professional development. So the district could send, at the elementary level at least, I really can't speak to the middle, but I know at the elementary level, we could send one teacher or myself or someone to the training, which I believe is two and a half days. And then the goal is that they could come back and train any teachers that were going to be implementing the program. And that's general for any Project Lead the Way launch program, which is the elementary. I think it's a little more specific at the middle school. And then there is a cost associated with materials.
Yeah, the model is definitely different at the middle school.
I mean, you don't have to go into all the
Sure.
specifics of it, but just the ballpark of, are we talking $1,000? Are we talking $50,000? Are we talking $25,000?
Yes, that was one of the interesting things about this program. It was in thinking about the Milton Foundation's STEAM celebration. That was one of our thoughts for where we could go with that. But the other thing that we liked about this is there are two basic launch courses that you need to offer, but after that there's a whole menu of courses, and so those actually are the ideal thing to be writing grants for, to keep continually adding courses to enhance your menu of STEM offerings. So once we sort of did a basic course, we then could write grants hopefully to get some of these other more unique and actually probably the highlight courses for some of our students.
That's kind of what my next question was going to be. So it's a big upfront and then minimal as you go along. So that sounds like a perfect match for what you've described. Thank you. The high school has so many diverse and exciting choices right now for kids. It's wonderful. Can students take multiple science classes? I know that sometimes scheduling is a challenge, but I'm sure they want to take them all. So
Yeah, so at the high school, biology and chemistry are requirements in order to go into the upper level courses such as physics, anatomy, physiology, environmental science, all of our APs, and biotechnology. But we are very creative with working with our guidance counselors and our administration that if students really do have an interest or a drive, that we have seen an increase in the number of students starting to double up in science beginning in their junior year, continuing that into their senior year. Our most special cases have been the students who try to take 2 full-year science courses and one of the electives, whether it's biotechnology, environmental science, but we do try to find ways with the students to make it work.
that's great. My next question. So you talked a lot about Legos, and it's been a long time since I've had Legos in my house, but I'm sure that there are people in the town that have Legos that they're not using. And is that something that you could take donations and use them, or are they very, I know at the higher levels it's very specific, but is that something that we could put an ask out for?
At the elementary level, in first grade, donations for Legos would be helpful. Second grade, it's a very specific kit with very specific pieces. But in the first grade, they are using these Legos not to build robots that need specific pieces, but creatively to solve a real-world challenge that's been presented to them. So the things that they come up with look very different, and they use very different pieces. So I know when I was a first grade teacher piloting the program, we did ask for donations of Legos, and Marilyn Decker was very good at getting those into classrooms. And I think at the building-based level, we've asked for some donations, and many have come in and gotten into the hands of the first grade teachers. So yes, we welcome donations of Legos for first grade.
And I was also thinking like the after-school clubs that you were saying are starting at Glover, and those might
Yep,
benefit
that
from.
too also requires very specific Legos only. But there are, at different schools, there are some after-school clubs that are open to all students. I know at Cunningham they have a Lego after-school enrichment club where they're doing a lot of similar things to what I mentioned in the first grade STEM program, and they just use regular Legos. So yes, donations are welcome and appreciated. Thank you.
That's great. And finally, I just want to say that before this, I think this document goes up online, it gets posted, I think you should add a page at the front with your names and your titles so that people have that as a reference. But also, in looking on the Milton Public School website, I looked under departments and I don't see science. And I think that you guys need you need a page up there. You need to be sharing this information, because this is very wonderful news. We've come so far, and not just, I mean, I remember back when we were talking 10 years ago, Mary and Glenn, when we were talking about, aligning things and, the standards, and that was pre-Common Core, but it's just, this is very exciting. So I would love to see a science department page. I mean, I did a quick search here, but I couldn't really find it even by going through Milton High School, or, so how do we celebrate all that you're doing and put that on our miltonps.org website?
We did do some updating for the Pierce, but I'm actually not sure the best way to find it. So that would actually be helpful information. I know that our media specialist, Jess Royster, did some updating for us.
I didn't look at Pierce. I was just
Well, no, and I
trying to
actually
be
think it's
fast,
not through
but-
Pierce either. I feel
Okay.
like it was somehow through the district that I found some very old documents and put some new things in. But that would be thinking about that and how you would like that to look would actually be helpful
Intuitively,
feedback for us.
it's a department, and you go to the department page and you get all this great information, because, we athletics are a department, but science isn't, so just want to, we know you are, we just need to share.
Take care of that.
Thank you. Great.
Ms. Bagley Jones.
One quick comment. The biotech lab always has a special spot in my heart. And what I really liked about it was that the kids that I saw go through it, my own kids, it created a lot of interest in work opportunities. It created a lot of interest in what they should study in college, and for their friends as well. And it always felt like it was if you wanted to take it, you could take it. And that's, I think, what I was trying to get at earlier about the iSTEM is I want kids to feel the same way, that yeah, of course I can do that. Because I don't know if it's still true, but they love that biotech lab because of the hands-on piece of it.
Yeah, so that is still, any students who complete the biology and chemistry, just to have the background knowledge, are able to take it. There's no prerequisites in terms of grade point average or anything like that, just those two courses. And again, with having the two different courses now, the semester introductory course, and then for those who get very interested in that introductory course, now offering a full year course to expand their knowledge and the theory behind what their application is to science. It's also, as you said, another great way for our students to see hand-on skills aside from the traditional biology, chemistry, or physics classroom. But again, what are other techniques that are being used both in industry and at the college and university level?
Thanks.
Ms. Kelly?
Ms. Gormley's gonna, this is so exciting. I think I must have missed your update last year. But I mean, it almost seems like the Milton Public Schools have just leapt like years ahead in such a short period of time. It's just so exciting. I want to congratulate all your efforts and how it's all being integrated, which again is fantastic. Robotics are sort of close to my heart because one of my guys, I think, was in an initial robotics club, and it actually it creates huge opportunities for growth, not only in just learning about robotics, but just the meets and how do you coordinate and how do you work on a team. I mean, it just is a fantastic skill. So I'm so glad that they're continuing and expanding. I mean, the opportunities that you're providing are fantastic. So one thing I did want to mention is I think it's fantastic that we're doing science fairs. But there are other districts, and Quincy is the one that jumps out of my mind, that used to anyways, whether they still do it or not, actually create science fair projects as part of science, and even expand it such that, you know, they would maybe be developing something that they might want to try and sell. And they would do presentations, and they would create a written document that would try so that, and granted, you guys have tons of stuff to do and this much time to do it, but if we aren't getting kids to be engaged because maybe, you know, their family can't help them out at home or they don't have the resources or whatever, if there's any opportunity, even if it's not as big, you know, they can be small-scale projects maybe that could be done in the classroom that would then engage everyone. Everyone would be working on the same thing. I think that would be a fantastic opportunity. And thank you so much. This is just really, really fantastic.
So just to talk quickly about that point, for one example, as to what you were leading to was the teachers that have gone through and authored a PTC STEM unit and being delivered into our science and math classes. One that we, current teacher is working on in the program is all students in the biology classes, again, beginning next year. He's still working on finishing it up now. The students will be asked to design an article of clothing. And they're going to go through explore, create, and share phase where they will create a product. They'll brainstorm ways about how it will help some type of condition with the human body. This is going to be in a biology classroom. Then the students will be given materials to actually create it. So he's already brainstorming ways of how can we use that 3D printer? How can we work with our sewing students? What do we need to buy that a student could just make a 3D model even out of styrofoam or you know, Legos, building blocks, whatever it is. And then the students will actually have sharing points where they need to stand up, pitch it to the class, and see, would you buy our product in the end? So working with PTC, and again, their thought of how do we bring design and product development into curriculum, that's some of the things our teachers are currently working their way to develop.
That's fabulous.
Mr. Zulus?
I have two questions. One, for one of you, could you describe the value add to your efforts that would result from having a materials manager? If there were a materials manager, can you describe what the value add to your efforts would be?
I can speak to that at the elementary level because I think I have a unique case, separate and different from the middle and high school, because I am working in 4 different schools that have 4 different sets of materials that have been accumulated over the years, some of which are useful and are being used and are in classrooms, some of which are not and are very outdated. When I first started my position last year, my first thought was, okay, I've got to see what we have and then think about what we need and think about what teachers are asking me for. A lot of my time is currently being spent addressing teacher needs. So at K1 and 2 mostly now, since 3, 4, and 5 do have the new curriculum. But still with the new curriculum, it's going to take some of my time to restock these kits and then get them somehow from building A to building B. So the way the purchase was made was that it was more cost effective to not purchase one kit to house in every single classroom, but instead we cut that cost in half and bought enough for half of our teachers to be teaching a unit at any given time. So right now, for instance, let's take 5th grade, for example. Our Collycott 5th grade teachers are teaching the new FOSS unit called Living Systems. Our Cunningham 5th grade teachers are not teaching the Living Systems unit right now because it's in use at Collycott. They're instead teaching a current Milton Public Schools unit about space, which will be replaced next year in the second year of the implementation plan with a FOSS space kit. At Tucker, the 5th grade team is implementing the Living Systems kit, but at Glover, the teachers are implementing the space kit. And then at the completion of the unit, somehow there needs to be a quick turnaround for those kits to get into the hands of the new teachers and for them to have everything that they need and to coordinate the delivery of all of these crayfish and snails and guppies and goldfish that get delivered to the office and then need to be put into teachers' hands. So the way I'm thinking of it, it would be helpful for me because I want to spend the bulk of my time in a meaningful way, which is interacting with teachers and being in classrooms and being in conversations with grade level teams and supporting the work they're doing in a way that isn't just in a science closet. I'm not saying that's what I do or all that I do, but a lot of time is spent after school or before school trying to organize and coordinate because I'm working with all classroom teachers K to 5. So it's a lot of teachers, it's a lot of different units, whereas at the middle and high school level, they have a science team who just teaches science and knows the content really well, and that's all they're focused on. But at the elementary level, they're teaching math, science, and everything, and they know what they need, but they don't have the time to get it, and that's where I kind of come in to support them with that. So that's the way that I think of that, how that would help me and in turn help the teachers get more support.
So is it less less of an issue at the middle and high school?
Yeah, actually, for us at the middle school, we're fortunate. Our teachers are pretty much only teaching science, and they keep their materials in their classrooms. So the way it works now is at the end of the year, they know what they need, they let me know, we order it, and then they distribute it. Or they have their own sort of science storage area that they can retrieve materials from. I can speak a little bit about my experience in my previous role in another district where we supported 8 elementary schools, and one of the and we happened to have a science materials manager there. One of the challenges we had was this sort of switching of units takes valuable, it's more cost effective to pay someone at a different rate to just purely restock materials and prepare and count magnifying glasses and check units and do all of that than it is to use someone's expertise, take someone's expertise away from a classroom. So for an elementary level, your needs are very different in that there's a lot more moving parts, and these teachers are only teaching this unit once a year. They may not always be as familiar with the materials. And so I think it's certainly a unique problem having 4 elementaries and one. For us, we're able to resolve it within house.
Okay. And then the second question, there's been some discussion about getting a 3D printer for the library. How useful is the 3D printer? How useful has it been, and how useful do you think it will be, I guess?
So right now, the 3D printer that we have at the high school is housed within the mathematics department because computer science is actually an elective of the mathematics department, and that's utilized there. We're working on a grant to get one for the science department as well, just because we also run into scheduling where courses that may need them will run concurrently with one another. So looking to, if we have a couple more in the building, allowing for that expansion of all of our classes that run. The only thing with looking at the library as a space is we would just have to ensure that the software would be on those computers to read it in that location.
No, the discussions are at the Milton Public Library getting it, so I was just
But
curious.
we'd like one at your own library.
No, I hear that. No, I was just curious at how useful it's been, because there've been discussions about getting it.
Very engaging for the
Very.
students, very, yeah.
Very.
I also saw it in action at Milton Academy. I had gone to observe the Lego Redo program there a few years ago with Marilyn Decker, and they had a 3D printer, and it really is pretty cool, and it gets the kids involved, and they're proud of their work, and that was the first time I saw it, so I was excited to hear that Milton High School had one too.
May I say something?
Sure.
I should wait till Mr. Walker speaks, but we have very talented, gifted and talented teachers in the Milton Public Schools. So to Mrs. Kelly's point and Ms. Sheridan, I think that we have to go back for anyone just viewing and go over that the school committee said 2 years ago, what do you need to move the district ahead? And we identified 3 areas. And you've put in the hands, this town meeting, this warrant committee, this school committee, the materials and the professional development to let, Ms. Kelly, to let these teachers do what they do best. And so you heard tonight at the beginning of this advancement initiative, we used to talk about it, but you heard over and over again the text, the materials, the supplies, the professional development. And I want to tell you, and I need every school committee member to convey to the public, that without that advancement initiative, we would not have been able to be at this point. Let me repeat myself. Without the advancement initiative funds, we would not be, you would not be hearing this presentation. Or you would have had to let X number of teachers go. And those are the teachers who are using the text materials and supplies. So this advancement initiative, you take talented teachers, you take talented and gifted children, and you put the materials and the professional development in their hands. And these are the kinds of exciting options for students that you're going to hear. I also have to say that for the Milton Foundation for Education and other groups, they don't want to assume the taxpayer's responsibility. They want to enhance what's going on. And I sat here tonight and I've marked my paper 29 times when these teachers who, excuse me, Glenn, could you move back? These teachers, move back, Glenn? These teachers who are trained to teach, are trained in science, have talked about writing grants and fundraising. And so for one who does that work, it takes a lot of time. And it's time away from correcting, and it's time away from planning, and it's time away from collaborating. But they do it, and they're proud of it. But I have to say to the town of Milton that their tax dollars and their investment in their schools is so enhanced by the work of these professionals who are going outside the taxpayer's responsibility and tax dollars, and they do it, and they're proud of it. But they go to the MFE, today they put in grants, and the MFE will give $20,000 out, Blue Hills Bank. I have 24 marks that they referred to tonight about grants and fundraising. And so on behalf of the school district, I want to thank you, but I, as a parent or guardian, I wouldn't want my child's science education relying on the success of grant writing. So the grant writing enhances the school budget. And so again, the school committee 2 years ago, going to the warrant committee, going to the town meeting, said, this is what we need to operate and provide the Milton Public School children with the education that they should have equal to other children in other districts. And I think tonight, this science presentation just really symbolized the work and the efforts of the taxpayers' dollar and your commitment to excellence in education. Because if, again, in the beginning, if you take talented individuals and you give them the text materials and supplies, you who have been sitting here know they didn't have, you made a commitment on this school committee, you know, Christy Chiapetta will tell you, and Karen Spalding, to purchase all of the materials. You didn't say, well, you have to wait 5 years and you'll get a grade a year. You purchased the materials and you made the commitment to the children who are in front of us now. And so for your work in all of that enhancing, but I don't want Amy Tom to rely on that course a year from now on the success of fundraising. Again, to enhance the experience, but every child deserves the education that should be funded by the town of Milton. And then the enhancements come from the fundraising. And you have done an outstanding job, and the school committee will talk later about, and I spoke to Chairman Walker, all of the pieces you've put in, they're really only months away from a continuum plan, and a 3-year out plan, K through 12. But all of the work you've done in the investigation and how you have really taken your professional development statewide, I'm really so grateful on behalf of the children. And I love that Mrs. Kelly mentioned the robotics. I just have Mr. Diamond go anywhere that we go and just put up about the robotics. I equate it to the debate. We started debate as a club. Now it's an elective, and some students are in the elective, but when we compete against other high schools that the Milton Public Schools want to be like, those are in-class schools. So it's very hard. My ulterior motive is for you to compete against other districts when you're 2 hours after school. I will guarantee you that those are electives, courses during the school day, because that's what we found out in other areas. So I thought this was amazing tonight, and again, to the advancement initiatives, but there could have been funding, but your skillful way, talented way that you took that funding and maximized it for the children and for the program, you're to be complimented. And I want to tell the school committee and the public, they've developed a team here. And so nobody's working in isolation. So I'm sorry, I should have let you go first. Very well said.
Only a fool would try to follow that. So, thank you for everything you're doing. Impressive presentation, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Superintendent Gormley, Leslie Haynes is smiling.
Well, I have to tell you, they mentioned her name and you today.
Big
I have to tell you, we're debating, if I might, before they leave, you know, again, so the school committee doesn't think they come of the public and they're not part of the team. Today, when we had our meeting about the advancement budget, and they talked about how you advocate for the science, and somebody said, I think she's talking about Leslie Haynes. So people remember, and they know when science was alive in the Milton Public Schools. Thank you.
Happenings?
Briefly, thank you. Thursday, we asked, every year, it's sort of a treat, a group will come up from the high school play and give you a little snippet, and they were supposed to come at 7 o'clock tonight, but I think they may have run over in their practice. And so tomorrow night at 7 o'clock in the Charles Winchester Auditorium here at Milton High School, and Saturday at 2 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night. And that unique schedule is because they're competing against a football game on Friday night. Legally Blonde, I will guarantee that you'll leave humming and enjoying that high school musical. Our school committee member meeting, to Chairman Walker's point, is Monday night, reminding the viewing public. Tuesday is Veterans Day. There will be no school. On the website, we're featuring, every school has fundraisers. They always want their fundraiser, people to be reminded, the PSPTO Fall Fling, November 13th at Wollaston Golf Course. For any parent who's still viewing or who watches this meeting, I would encourage them, if they don't have their parent-teacher conference scheduled, for them to directly contact their principal and/or their child's classroom teacher. We're looking for 100% participation in parent-teacher conferences this year, and we'll bend over backwards to work around parents' schedules. And circle on your calendar, we're bringing back a program that existed in the Milton Public Schools. On November 24th at 6:30, our athletic director and high school principal are going to have a required night for all the parents and guardians of athletes, and the music department's going to make it a required night, and it's going to be for parents on chemical awareness. And so we've worked with, through Chairman Walker, we're bringing Jennifer Rowe, and she's going to bring the district attorney, working with the Milton Police Department. And I think it will be a night that parents will become educated, and we'll do a tremendous amount of publicity about that night that's going to be required for the parents and guardians of all students going into winter athletic teams.
What was the date for that, Ms. Conley?
November 24th at 6:30 at the Milton High School Auditorium. Thank you.
Okay, first item on my report is Transportation and Traffic Safety Subcommittee. You have a document in your packet and on Google Docs if you prefer. This need comes out of a number of discussions that all of us have been having with parents in various parts of town related to traffic safety and transportation issues. And it builds on a conversation that we started on at our last meeting, where we were looking for the means to try to compile some of these complaints and concerns, and more importantly, to see if we can resolve them. So it's recommended that we vote to approve the formation of an advisory subcommittee entitled the Transportation and Traffic Subcommittee. The purpose would be to review transportation and traffic safety as it relates to the Milton Public School students. And the intent is that the subcommittee would serve as a conduit for concerns related to transportation and traffic safety received either by school committee members or the school administration. The specific charge of the subcommittee would be that this subcommittee would coordinate the development of solutions to the identified transportation and traffic safety issues with the Milton Police Department, Department of Public Works, the Traffic Commission, and the town administrator at a minimum. And in terms of composition, the thought is one or more school committee members, the assistant superintendent for business, given his responsibility for transportation, the director of transportation, and one parent from each elementary school appointed through the respective PTO president. So I'll entertain a motion to form such a subcommittee. Moved by Ms. Sheridan,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Kelly. Any discussion?
Just one thing, if I might. I think it's important to acknowledge there is a group of parents who have, in a way, driven this issue in the last couple of our meetings, and I'm sure they'll be here Monday night as well. But I think it's important to acknowledge because they participated in the process productively and creatively, and they are at a minimum Heather Montgomery, Cindy Christensen, Carrie Kelly, Rose Rhodes, Deidre Howard, Tracy Reagan, Tori Curtis, and Jane Green. They've spent a lot of time here and outside of these meetings, so I think it's just important to acknowledge, their efforts and that those efforts have been fruitful.
On the motion, it's been moved into Ms. Kelly.
So just one question. Are there any safety issues around Pierce Middle School? I'm just wondering, we only have the elementary schools, and granted, if we want to just focus on elementary, that's fine, but
I think
I didn't know whether Pierce might be also, just for, I'm just thinking 6th graders, 7th graders, whatever.
Sure. I don't see any problem with broadening that.
The traffic turnabout at Pierce is difficult. I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of this. I didn't realize it.
I'm sorry.
I missed the right, I know. But I
Okay.
mean, we just read through it? Is that
Yes,
what I
we
missed?
did.
Okay. Thank you.
And we have a motion that's been moved and seconded to approve formation of a subcommittee. And I'm about to take a vote.
Actually, I have one more question. So
Okay.
if we're adding middle school to it, will we have a middle school representative parent on this committee as well?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. I don't
Yeah,
think we
that's sort of what I
actually
was
stated
trying to
that.
do.
Yeah.
So that's.
So with that modification, friendly amendment accepted. On the motion, all in favor? It's unanimous.
So may I ask a follow-up
Sure.
question? So it says one or more school committee members. I didn't know, if there was some thought around that?
Yes, well, Ms. Bagley-Jones has expressed an interest in coordinating some of these issues, so we have at least one member who has expressed an interest, and
Thank you, Kristen.
What was what I was trying to express very late that night, and I was inarticulate, and Leroy came up with the word, and I was like, that's what I meant. But I do think that the parents you mentioned
have raised so many issues around safety that it bears to really look into. So I would be interested and welcome anybody else from the school committee who would like to join. Looking at Mike.
We're there.
Or anybody else.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Next, the superintendent's evaluation. All of you received a composite document that represented feedback from several school committee members. I actually had the opportunity to involve the superintendent at the same time that I forwarded that document to school committee members. I also forwarded it to the superintendent. I'm pleased to say that the superintendent was pleased with the ratings, with the content, and with the comments. So I'm going to try to summarize the document, and then I will give each member an opportunity to comment, and then I'd like to vote to approve this document. What I said to the superintendent that is most striking is that when you read through this, and I'm not going to read the entire document, but when you read through this, the extraordinary reach that the superintendent has in this school district is unbelievable. She is involved in every single important initiative. She's involved in outreach. She's involved in things that are going on in the community. And I don't know how she does it, but she's everywhere. And we know from our email that if she sleeps at all, it's maybe 3 or 4 hours a night. But the document is divided into professional practice goals, student learning goals, district improvement goals, and then 4 different standards. The professional practice goals were related to learning walks for this particular period. There was significant progress there. The student learning goals were directly related to proficiency gap performance, and there were a number of instances where we exceeded the goals and a number of instances where we didn't meet the goals, but significant progress there as well as the rating. And then district improvement goals, which related to development of community partners, and there we saw some progress as well. Yep. Sure.
The process of this, and I apologize, I didn't get you my comments, but I have them on my scribbles, but can we add as we go, or is this seen as the final document?
This is the final document, but if there are particular comments that you'd like to add that you feel aren't covered, I'm happy to add those. But in terms of the ratings and the document, we're set.
Okay, and so then how the ratings were done, like what, I don't understand how a proficient versus exemplary or needs improvement.
The ratings were the average of the 4 individuals that submitted the form and ratings.
Okay, so my apologies, because I didn't realize if I didn't submit them ahead of time, that they couldn't be included in that in terms of the weighing of the measurements. I don't remember us doing it that way before, so.
We've never done this process
Right,
before.
that's
This
what
is
I
a
mean.
lot more rigorous and involved a lot more work.
Oh, yeah, but I didn't realize that if your comments or your feedback wasn't in here, then it would impact the weighing of the final product. So, I don't know. Okay.
So let me keep going there. Standard 1, instructional leadership, the rating was proficient. Standard 2, management and operations, the rating was proficient. Standard 3, family and community engagement, the rating was exemplary. And standard 4, professional culture, the rating was proficient. So what I'd like to do is read just a sampling of the comments and to give you a flavor for some of the feedback that's included in here. The superintendent shows a tireless commitment to student growth through her nonstop work with students and teachers, with her leadership team, with staff, with parents and guardians, with the school committee, with other town elected officials and departments, with community groups, with professional groups, and with other professionals. Through the force of her work ethic and will, the superintendent has driven this district forward to improve opportunities for all students. The superintendent has led the district diligently to expand student assessments and teacher evaluations and to broaden the district's capabilities for data-driven decision-making. Under her leadership, the Milton Public Schools has made great strides creating and incorporating internal assessments across the district and utilizing state and internal data in decision-making. The superintendent has shown a devotion to instruction in the classroom through her extensive program of learning walks throughout the district. The superintendent continuously sets high goals for herself and staff. Just a few recent examples would include her early literacy initiatives, which are focused on closing the literacy gaps. She has consistently lobbied for the hiring of additional reading specialists, which have shown to be effective in improving student reading levels. The English Innovation Pathways STEM program in our early grades will lead to higher student science proficiencies and also help ignite a love of science in the early years. Additionally, the implementation of the new teacher evaluation tool will help drive all classrooms meeting the needs of all students. The superintendent is committed and well-known within both the school community and town community. She is present at almost all town and school events. She knows how to rally support within the town for the schools on short notice. The superintendent does an outstanding job in communication. Her email blast is a communication model for all districts. She has amazing connections throughout the community and beyond. She works tirelessly to listen to and resolve any concerns and makes great effort to work with diverse groups and head off potential conflicts with Milton Public Schools employees, parents, and community members. The superintendent engages families and community stakeholders through direct one-on-one communication by email, telephone, and in-person meetings. The superintendent works effectively with community groups such as the Milton Foundation for Education, the Copeland Foundation, Citizens for a Diverse Milton, and the Milton Library Foundation. By the example of her tireless efforts and through her leadership, the superintendent sets high standards for students, teachers, and staff. The superintendent has ensured that each school in the district is attentive to cultural diversity and promotes inclusion. The superintendent has enhanced and fostered professional development throughout the district with data-driven resource allocation and a commitment to moving the district forward. So, those are just a sampling of the comments that are included with this evaluation. So, other comments? Ms. Sheridan.
So thank you, Mr. Walker, for your compilation of these notes because it's very thorough. I like to think personally that our superintendent is exemplary, and that's just my personal bias, so I just want to put that out there to begin with. But I just had three separate areas within it, and I can email these to you if you want to, if you choose to use them. That would be much easier. So I picked them from different paragraphs that you just shared, and one is that the paragraph around the superintendent sets high goals, and I think it's worth noting that when Ms. Gormley identifies a need in the district, she seeks out the research around the challenge and looks at best practices so that no decision is made without a great deal of thoughtful, reflective preparation. And I think that that was evidenced in the binder that we received with all of the, backup data and information about research-based decisions. So that's one. The second point came under the paragraph around she is committed and well-known within both the school and town community. I think it's worth noting that Superintendent Gormley is a collaborator, and she's a collaborator who works not only in the community groups that you identified, but also with the many folks on the town side, including
the town government, the town administrator, the selectmen, the park commissioners, the Milton Police Department, Consolidated Facilities, and even the DPW. So if you feel that that would be appropriate to add in, I think collaboration is a big piece of what Superintendent Gormley brings to our community. And finally, just under the paragraph where she works effectively with her leadership team, she has surrounded herself with extremely talented professionals in her leadership team, including Assistant Superintendent Sheehan and Pavlicek, and principals who are sought after across the state, and department chairs that bring a passion and commitment to their work every day. So those are just my
Great.
3 comments.
I'll incorporate all of those.
Thank you.
Some of my comments are not just on your, well, are on the comments section, but also on some of the steps along the way.
Okay.
One in particular, which was around, on page 9, continuous learning, develops a culture where staff members are reflective about their practice, best practices, da-da-da-da-da. Well, tonight was a real example of that, you know, the folks who came tonight, they didn't just show up here on their own. They, you know, Mary helped foster that in so many ways. And that's a proficient, which I would think would be more of an exemplary, and I understand it was a group grading or whatever, but to me, that really stands out of when we see these really creative and hardworking folks, that's coming from the top. To get that going there. So, and there was another place for environment on page 7, environment and human resource management. The safety, health, emotional, and social needs I saw as exemplary, and also the cohesive approach from sitting on many of the search teams to hire people over the years. Really seeing how that worked. I saw those 2 things as 3 things now as very exemplary. And then on your comments, which I thought were great, I did agree that there was a part in there, Mary, about your leadership team and not just how great they were, but that, you know, delegating to them more. And I would agree with that very much. But I do think that also there's some holding, that you have to hold them responsible for their customer service and public relations in their schools. You can't do it all, even though I think you'd like to, but you can't do it all. And holding them accountable for their customer service, I think, is something that needs to be worked on. And then my own, I'm looking at 2 different sheets, so excuse me for, in terms of the STEM comments, you know, I agree that maybe certain things weren't finished, but if we were applying this part to like we do with the growth model on MCAS, but it's on Mary, you know, look at the growth that has happened in STEM. Maybe not every single thing along the way, something hasn't been completed and there was another thing that wasn't done, but when I look at the growth model and apply it to Superintendent Gormley in the STEM program, I think the percentage of growth is unbelievable. And the comments, I think this is my last comment, the comments, summary comments on performance, I think are really thorough. I think they really speak to Mary and what her skills are and what she's given to this district. I doesn't feel like it ends up as a proficient, even though proficient on this is what is expected and is a very good grade. Grade, for lack of a better word. But I look at her comments here, which I agree with, and that doesn't feel like it ends up as the overall performance as proficient. But I also didn't turn in my comments. So, you know, I have to take responsibility for that, you know, my scribbled pages.
Yes.
And I did not turn them in. But I just wanted to say them, to add
Okay.
to that.
Yeah, I'll add 2 overall comments. On the grading, on the levels. I can just tell you, my view of the levels, proficient versus exemplary, proficient connoted, at least in my mind, a rigorous, high level of performance. Exemplary, quote-unquote, significantly exceeds proficiency and could serve as a regional or statewide model. So, indeed, the superintendent was great, exemplary in a number of categories, but I think, at least in my view, the proficient rating also connotes a very high level of performance. And to that end, I would say that, it's my view that the leader sets the tone for any organization. And I think what we've seen in this organization is high energy, high performance, collaboration, courteousness, and I think that that comes from the tone that's set at the top.
Ms. Kelly?
I think I want to comment mostly on the process. This is an amazingly detailed review, not only starting with the documentation that you provided for us, but also just thinking about all of this. I mean, this is a huge evaluation, and I think it's a great tool. I think in previous years discussing superintendent's evaluations, I can't stand that it's something that we have to sit here and do publicly. I think evaluations are much better done one-on-one, where everyone can be frank, and the process is a productive one as opposed to a presentation. However, I mean, given all of the, I've been here for a few years now, it is amazing if I compare sort of the school committee's role in interacting with the superintendent and helping to mold together sort of the vision and moving forward. It is amazing what has changed in, I think, 12 years. And a great part of it over the past several years is due to Superintendent Gormley's leadership and her amazing skills and unbelievable devotion to not only the Milton Public Schools, but the town of Milton. And I think we can only be grateful for your leadership. Thank you for all your dedication, and look forward to future success. So thank you.
And I do agree. I mean, Mary, you're saying it, exactly what I'm thinking, and I also hear you, Mike, about proficient. I guess when I look at, and having worked in public schools all of my career, I got to tell you, we get the golden apple over here. And that doesn't mean just because, whatever, but I'm just giving you as an example. I don't see this as an overall proficient superintendent, even though proficient is a very good grade. I feel like I'm with my students talking to them about their grades. B+ is very good. But that Mary, Superintendent Gormley, is truly an exemplary superintendent, and she could go anywhere and, any town, and show them a thing or two. So I guess I just want to really say that. I wouldn't see the overall rating as proficient. So that's all.
So I'll entertain a motion to accept the document with any additional comments submitted by Ms. Bagley-Jones and Ms. Sheridan.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Sheridan, seconded by Ms. Kelly. All those in favor on the motion? It's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, for your work on this.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gormley.
No follow-up this meeting, so we'll move to Finance Subcommittee.
First item is the approval of vendor warrants, plural or warrant?
Singular.
Okay, do you have the details?
Yes, since we last met, there has been one warrant that you've signed and we submitted, which was warrant number 18 on October 30th for $584,701.56.
So I'd move that we approve vendor warrant, 18?
18.
the previously noted amount.
Second.
Moved
I
by
wrote
Ms.
it.
Kelly, seconded by Mr. Zulus. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Abstain? 401.
There will be another warrant this weekend at the police station, and it will have to have signed by early next week.
Can we sign it Monday?
Yes,
Thank you.
I'll bring it Monday night.
The next, oh, sorry.
No.
The next item is the final budget for FY14 document and summary sheet by Dr. Pavlicek.
For your, it's a informational item. It has a cover memo of November 4th, following up some discussion at the Finance Subcommittee this week.
Titled
It's just
End-of-Year Report.
Yeah, it's titled End of Year Report, yes. And so it's just a basic summary of how we finished the year. You've already seen the actual end of year report that we sent into the state on October 1st. This is just a summary of where we came in the major budget items and an explanation of variances from budget for last year. Very briefly, we were slightly under budget in instruction because of things like staff exchange. It was we had a large number of people change over in the summer of 2013, and that created a discrepancy in the personnel budget. We saved a little money in special education over the year, primarily dealing with some of our contracted services in-house. On the other hand, we were over budget in facilities, partially due to the cold winter and utility costs, partially due to some of the security enhancements and other repairs we had to deal with during the year, and there was also the issue of the water bill from prior years. So we finished the year balanced and having expended our allocation, and this is just a brief summary with attachments at the back of how we got there. We've been over it at Finance Subcommittee a couple of times. I don't know that it requires a vote, I can take one or not. It is a report.
I think Ms. Kelly, you have an opinion on that?
I'm just trying to think. No, I mean, I think if there are no objections, I would ask that it be posted on the website and be sort of our final report on expenditures.
Seeing none, done.
The next item is the FY15 budget line item. Well, the line items as proposed by Dr. Pavlicek and the administration. We obviously have a bottom line number that we were awarded, thankfully, from town meeting last spring. And there's always, some moving here and there to get to a final budget, so that we have line items established under policy and administration, instructional leadership, instruction, instructional services, SPED, technology and facilities, each having a salary and a non-salaried allocation. So the total is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, $39,468,081 in our FY15 budget. Please tell me that's correct.
$39,357,890, right.
Oh, okay, yes. Sorry, there was a prior year carryover in transfers. I'm not even sure what that is. Okay. So the allocation from town meeting was $39,357,890?
Correct.
Okay. And do the other members have the line items?
Is
a
the
sheet with-
October 24th memo?
Is
Yeah,
that what
there's
that
an
is?
attachment behind it with the...
Okay.
No, there isn't.
This is what I think that was on the email, though.
It was in the...
Was it in the email? Because that's what I had.
Well, I could read off the totals if you want, if that will be helpful, or is that okay, or?
That would be fine.
Okay. So The allocation proposed is for policy and administration, $992,000 in salary, non-salary $267,300. In instructional leadership, the salary $2,857,125, for non-salary $64,500. In instruction, $18,376,200, and non-salary $684,365. In instructional services, $2,485,700, and in non-salary $444,000. In special education, for salary $5,694,700, for non-salary $4,170,000. Technology, salary $261,000, non-salary $249,000. And last, facilities, salary $1,483,000, and non-salary $1,329,000. Again, for a total of $39,357,890. So I would move that we vote those line items and basically monitor that throughout the remainder of the year.
What's the total?
$39,357,890.
Been moved by Ms. Kelly,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Zulus. Discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
And then the last item is quarterly grants, which I would echo the sentiments of Superintendent Gormley that take a lot of hard work on the part of our administrators and our teachers, and we're very grateful for them for doing that. And we're also grateful to those people who are awarding these grants that we're able to now receive. So, Dr. Pavlicek, if you could maybe give a brief description of...
The New England Dairy Council grant is a grant that Jackie Morgan from the Food Services Department got for Pierce Middle School. It's called Fuel Up to Play. Obviously a nutrition grant from the New England Dairy Council in the amount of $4,000. The First Beth Israel Deaconess Milton Hospital grant for $3,000 is to sponsor Chris Herron, who came to speak last year to the students, and this is to have him back again in the spring. The second Beth Israel Deaconess Milton Hospital is a community health grant. Maybe Ms. Bagley-Jones can speak to that through the Health and Wellness Committee. It's Michelle Cruiser at the high school put in for that grant.
That's for high school, good decision-making and healthy choices with the leadership team.
And Scholarship America and Raytheon Math Moves You is a Math Hero Award that was granted to Jim Moonen at the middle school with a matching grant of $2,500 to the Pierce Middle School. So this is the Pierce Middle School version of that. So there are 4 grants here.
So I would move that we accept the grants as described by Dr. Pavlicek.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Kelly, seconded by Mr. Zulus. Any discussion?
Yes, I would agree with that, but Mary, I'd like to see that you are keeping a list of the grants that come in, the grants that are applied for, because a lot of your staff are doing this, and I think it's really important data for you to have.
And before you vote on that, I think this last one, the Raytheon, we should recognize Eileen Heller, a parent in the community who submitted the application on Jimmy Moonen for this math grant.
Nice.
On the motion, all in favor? It's unanimous. Citizen Speak topic response, and we don't have any response, but tonight's speaker suggested the formation of a SPED subcommittee, so I'd like to hear from members and from the superintendent at some later date as to whether that's an idea we should entertain. Ms. Sheridan?
So I heard that's what she asked for, but I was actually wondering, and because I couldn't respond at that time, if it would be more appropriate to have a representative sit on their committee rather than a subcommittee. So have a school committee rep that attends the PAC meetings. Might be a a more effective way to communicate back and forth. And we already have a representative from the leadership team to have with Karen Clasby attending. So I think just a friendly suggestion that might be a more efficient, rather than trying to, do our work in a different space and time, but just to actually be more effective, a better use of our time to be sitting with them at the table. Just a thought.
Could you raise that question with her?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly?
I'm just trying to find out what you mean by that. So it's one thing to have a liaison who goes to their meetings. It's another, I think what they're asking for is more of a partnership, which I think is a reasonable request. And so if that means that outside, with their 10-member group, one or more members of the school committee would sit down and discuss issues that might be beneficial. It may not be the long-term sort of relationship, but maybe, at least it sounds like the fact that they're asking for a subcommittee, I think, has maybe a little bit more meaning behind it, but I could be wrong.
Well, let's see what she says.
Yeah.
She may say, no, I was asking for a subcommittee. So we'll say, okay.
And may I just clarify, so I guess I wasn't suggesting that this school committee rep would just go to their meetings, but more the executive board meetings when they're planning and they're communicating, not just attend their regular meetings where they're having presentations. So just a thought.
Got that?
Yes.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, if I could just add, could we just ask what other communities do?
Find out.
I think there are some other public schools that have a subcommittee of the school committee.
Like models.
Yeah, so let's just see what else is out there.
Next meeting agenda items, we moved fiscal 16 fees and advancement update to Monday night. Ms. Sheridan?
So I asked at the last meeting, and I know it didn't make it to this because this was a very full meeting, but that we just revisit the facilities subcommittee expectations or goals or charges from the school committee, please.
We've scheduled the athletic director and the Tucker Site Council for the 10th.
Great. So I would like to wish our partner, Maura Downs, happy birthday. She didn't call in sick. She came to her second job.
Would you like us to sing?
Thanks, Mara.
And with that, we are adjourned.